everyone around the world, and for those who are choosing not to tune in to the likes of Paul Smith and Will Vincent and Autosport International, thanks for joining us for your Gathering of Tweakers Endurance Series, round number 4 of the 3 hours of the Nurburgring. Randy Chin is joined by Mr. Alvin Yeves. Hugo Louis, as always, working the cameras, and the gridding has already begun, so let's take it down your starting grid. Sim Racing for Holland comes away with pole in your prototype division. Sim RC DE Emerald in second. Backmarker Racing and Thrustmaster Movano Racing Proto round out row number 2, with row number 3 being MP Prototype Racing as well as Torque Freak Racing Sunset. Back to your GT3 division, Pure Racing Team GT3 comes away with the pole with Euphoria Racing in second place. Row number 2, Core Sim Racing as well as Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack with Protom Racing and NAB Racing number 208 rounding out row number 3. Sim RC Magenta comes away with the pole in your C-Spec, the GTC division, with Blackadder Motorsport in that second spot. Core Sim Racing C-Spec and Sim RC DE Cyan, row number 2, with Pure Racing Team GTC and SRN Motorsports number 380, rounding out the top 3 rows of that field. New rough safety car currently rolls away, and they head out onto that sports car style chicane that we will be using here today at the Nurburgring. 35 cars, 3 hours of racing, and it's a big weekend of endurance racing here on iRacing as well as in sim racing in general. The Roar before the 24 yesterday, Gathering of Tweakers today, and then tomorrow we'll have the Neo Endurance 6 hours of the Nurburgring live here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. That said, pace car is in the pit lane, and Dennis Donner for Sim Racing for Holland is in charge of the field. He waits, and he will take the green flag, and the clock will start ticking here in the 3 hours of the Nurburgring.
Yeah, it is absolutely a fantastic start there for Dennis Duna and Sim Racing for Holland as they all head into turn 1. Let's hope that it looks like it's going to be a really clean start. Some cars are going wide as the GT3s are also going.
Looks to be a clean start throughout your prototype division. Here they come, the GT3 cars, into that tight first corner here, that hairpin at the Nürburgring. Always the trouble spot here on this racetrack. It looks like all these Mercedes-AMG GT3s getting through it rather cleanly. Now he's focused back to the C-Specs. They go into turn 1 for the first time. One's already getting pushed off wide. That looks like the Sim RC Cyan car. He's shuffled back, losing a spot or two as they go through into the Mercedes arena for the first time. And again, it looks like a clean start through your third division. All 3 classes, all 35 cars get through cleanly.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic start there by everybody. It kind of looks like the Sim RC.DE Cyan does it just a little bit under braking. These cars really hard to kind of get to slow down when you consider that no ABS, and you also have to flip the throttle. So absolutely you have to be on your toes. You gotta make sure that all those downshifts are made absolutely perfect, otherwise the car will twitch just a little bit, and up in here that could be the difference between getting a good position and being shuffled all the way back in the field. And this is round 4, and we only have this and the last race at Spa-Francorchamps, so now it's the time to really run for that championship.
And that's actually interesting discussion, Alvin, because obviously we're going to talk about the points, but it's not really just who's in it for the championship victory that we really need to focus on, because one of the awesome aspects of this series is that the top 3 in each division qualify themselves for the Neo Endurance Series 24 Hours of Le Mans. Keep in mind, for those who are unaware, that series is running 51 entries throughout its normal season. The last round will include the 9 teams from this championship who qualify themselves into that event. We'll talk about the points over the course of this race, though. Sim Racing for Holland continue to stretch their gap in first position in your Daytona prototype field, and that's not really coming to a surprise to us at all, Alvin, because Sim Racing for Holland last season, they absolutely dominated this race here at the Nürburgring, and here they've started it early. 7/10 over anyone else in qualifying is what they managed to get away with in the pole, and already Dennis Donna has himself out to a 1.1 second advantage, and I think that gap's already stretched out as they come now through turn number 6 down towards the Dunlop hairpin.
Yeah, it is absolutely. We're gonna definitely that start that Sim Racing for Holland just is definitely what they're looking. But before we kind of talk further in, we just had an incident on that lap number 1 between the Torque Freak Racing Sunset and the Samba Racing team going into turn number 6, 7. It kind of looks like the Torque Freak Racing Sunset just had a little bit of a bobble, and Samba Racing could not really avoid them. So contact happened, and it looks like Torque Freak Racing had to come into the pits to repair some damage. So early into the race, Torque Freak Racing Sunset really into the ropes, but it's a 3-hour race, so it's good that it happens now. You got plenty of time to recover.
And it actually was a pretty short pit stop, it looked to me, Alvin, for Jake Robson in that Torque Freak Racing Sunset group. Also keep in note, the Legends Racing guys, I believe they have to do an early stop and hold for 1 minute due to a penalty from that last race. So Jamie Wilson currently behind the wheel of that Legends Racing machine, standing in for a couple of their drivers. One of them is sick, the other one and the other guys, from what I understand, are at the Autosport International event. Philip Morton, Acme Racing 2, actually having some issues going into the final corner, really slow. Think he likely caught a black flag for cutting the chicane. Because of that, he had to give that time back, and that was a very slow lap for him. That'll easily shuffle him back down to the back end of that pack.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the things that we do have to look for into this race. That chicane, even though we are running the what is called the BES WEC format, it's a lot more open compared to what we found on the Grand Prix layout of this circuit. So even though it's more open, you kind of want to take more speed into it, but as a result you want to take more speed into it, and there is more temptation to kind of cut just a little bit more that you want to into that chicane. And well, that ain't really gonna fly with not only with iRacing but also with the stewards here, which we also have to remember we do have live stewarding here, so they will be looking at in every single bit of this race, and they will be making sure that everything here is done correctly.
As always, live stewards here in your Gathering at Tweakers Endurance Series. We're seeing a battle between the 158 and the 164 team. That Samba Racing team, as well as MP Prototype Racing, and they're coming down onto this back straightaway. And Nako Yarnos and that Samba Racing team, Alvin, looks to me like that left front of his C7 DP already a little bit bent up, and that seems to be affecting the top end. We got the car behind getting ready to make a move on the outside of that chicane, and that's a very difficult place to make things work. And contact happens. Samba gets halfway sent around, and then they touch again, and that kind of corrects them. So a bit of a brave move there, and it almost ended in tears for both, but Samba gets bailed out, but that damage is really slowing them down. And that's one of those things about that chicane, Alvin. It is so much more, it's so much quicker that in a lot of ways, even though it can be straight lined, that actually makes it a more dangerous corner than if we were just running the standard tight open wheeler chicane.
Yeah, it is absolutely one of those things that we find on this chicane. It's a lot more open than what we find on the Grand Prix format, and like I said, you can carry more speed, but also you can also have kind of like the temptation of trying to, because if you carry more speed, you may be tempted to cut just a little bit more to carry that speed. And well, and also because it's a lot more open, you can also put yourself into trying to race somebody side by side, and you can make it go through it. Sometimes contact will happen, which is kind of what we saw here with the Samba Racing team and the MP Prototype Racing. Fortunately, they both were able to make it without any major incidents happening, so that is also a good thing.
Got a fight down your GT3 division right now. This is Pro Batum Racing battling with Pure Racing Team GT3 here in your 4th and 5th spot. Jose Almeida is currently in that 4th position in that GT3 division. He has his mirror absolutely full of Jonas Wollmeyer as they go down into the Dunlop hairpin here for what is going to be the 4th time for these guys. And that's what we're kind of waiting for to see happen here, Alvin, is that still very tight early runnings here. A lot of battles currently forming up, a lot of people trying to get themselves stretched out. But you know that Jonas Wollmeyer and that Pure Racing Team GT3 wants to get himself around that number 220 car of Jose Almeida relatively quickly. Oh, and as I say that, Jose hiccups just a little bit there.
Yeah, it is absolutely one thing that Pure Racing Team, if there is something that this Pure Racing Team GT3 has done, is pretty much dominate from the drop of the green flag to the first race up until now. They have been pretty much the team to beat here in this series. They won the previous 3 rounds really convincingly. So kind of seeing them in this position right now, running in 5th place, it's a little bit kind of surprising. However, if there is a team that really knows how to run these type of races, is Pure Racing Team. Just because they are in 5th place doesn't mean they are down and over. I am pretty sure that they are just pretty much trying to take it over as they go for that overtake there with Pro Auto Racing, and it kind of looks like they are gonna make it. They're still going side by side, going through Pro Auto Racing, going into the Mercedes arena, but it kind of looks like, yes, they are gonna make it. So now running in 4th place. So next in line, Euphoria Racing Simuhack.
That was a good move there by Pure Racing Team into turn number 1 and through corner number 2. Jonas Wallmeyer did a very good job to get the inside of both corners, and because of that, Jose Almeida really not much in terms of defending he could really do. Jonas Wallmeyer just simply placed his car perfectly at both corners. So because of that, move him up 1 spot. Euphoria Racing Team, Core Sim Racing, and Euphoria currently 1, 2, 3 right now, and Juan Segura and the Euphoria Racing Rembulsing, the leading one, the 222 Euphoria Racing Team. They currently are stretching the gap over Core, and their team car trying to close in that gap to 2nd place right now. But Maxime Pauly and that Core Sim Racing AMG, I think, looking a little too strong for their 2nd team car.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And since now that pretty much the whole field, it kind of seems like everything, it's kind of starting to get a little bit more calmer. I think we can really start talking about not only championship but also that top 3, which is really important for this championship. Let's just start with the GT3 field, since we are pretty much focused on them. Like I said, Pure Racing Team, they have pretty much dominated this whole season. They are pretty much sitting in 1st place with a perfect score of 60 points. The next one in line, I'm gonna have to get this over, but if I do remember correctly, the 2nd place right now has 47 points. So if there's something that Pure Racing Team can do in here today, they can lock this championship, and that also not only means that they do get a ticket for the 24 hours of Le Mans and on the Neo Endurance Series, but they also get an automatic invite for next season's Neo Endurance Series as well.
And everyone wants to get themselves into that big event, Alvin, because the iRacing 24 Hours Le Mans was a big event, but I think there's going to be something special about that Neo Endurance race, because Neo's never done a 24-hour race before. And as I think right now, I think the longest race they've ever done has been 8 hours. And I think there's a lot of people that really want to put their names on the books as not only running in that first real day-long Neo Endurance event, but if you can come away with a win in that race, that'd be a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, it is absolutely. I am sure that all the teams here in iRacing, if there is a race that they are looking for, is that 24 hours of Le Mans. Absolutely. This is something that, like you just said, this is gonna be the first time ever that Neo will do a 24-hour race event, which is pretty much what Neo has been waiting for. Getting that 24-hour race, getting Le Mans, which is pretty much what kind of defines what endurance racing is pretty much all over the world. So I am sure that all the teams here, they want to get that 3rd place, very, very important. The top 3, they go to that race. It's really not a matter of getting points, but it's just a matter of not only being there but having a chance to win one of the biggest races in here.
Sim Racing for Holland continues to stretch their gap over Sim RC, DE Emerald, and really this top 3 in this prototype division already, Alvin, really spread out. It's a 3.6 second gap, or was a 3.6 second gap at the line from 1st to 2nd, and then it was a further 5 seconds back to get to that 3rd spot. Backmarker Racing a further 2nd back in 4th. So really, the top spots in this Daytona prototype field already for the most part getting themselves sorted. Looks like for the most part, if you're Sim Racing for Holland or Sim RC Emerald, not really under any challenge at the moment at all.
Yeah, and that is something that you want to get yourself, especially on a 3-hour race like this. Yes, it is a 3-hour race, so you also want to make yourself that you are in the least amount of pressure that you can, because it is one thing when you are put in some sort of pressure when you are on a 1 hour, maybe 90-minute race. But on a 3-hour race, you also have to test your pace, because this is really an endurance race. Perhaps not compared to a 6-hour race, but it's still an endurance race nonetheless. And you have the physical and you also have the mental aspect of what endurance racing is. And as we have Sim Racing for Holland now going through this GTC traffic. So this is also the other part that you really have to be patient. Going through this traffic, you know that you are fast. It's just a matter of timing your passes, making sure that you make it clean, and at the end of the day that you can cross the checker flag.
So here shortly, we're going to get ourselves a replay of the start. Dennis Dona and Sim Racing for Holland continuing to lead himself through this GTC division as he comes up on your GTC leaders who are currently going down into that Dunlop hairpin. You're going to note that right now this GTC field is really the closest in terms of the gap from all the leaders. So Blackadder Motorsport gathering in tweakers number 366. They currently lead, and they only have about a 1 second or so advantage over Jari Pakkanen in that Core Sim Racing C-Spec in second spot. Third place is a little bit further back, but they're fighting a little bit harder. And actually, if you look back, bit of 3 wide going now into that chicane before the coming onto the back straightaway, and that was Sim Racing for Holland, as well as who was also in that? Who's that blue and black car? That's Legends Racing, driven by Jamie Wilson, I think, who was just trying to get out of the way for those guys. Keep in mind that Legends Racing machine, one of the teams that, or the team that had a 60-second stop and hold due to an properly unregistered driver.
Yeah, so far, as we're going pretty much, the prototype and the GT3 field, it kind of looks like everybody is pretty much all spread all over the place, but this battle here for the lead in the GTC class really heating up. The Blackadder Motorsports and the Core Sim Racing, they are really going at it. But we have 2 prototypes coming in, so they also have to be careful. Yes, they are fast, but they also have to respect the fact that these 2 have their own battle. And you know, you like I just mentioned, you as the faster cars, especially for Sim Racing for Holland, they know that they are the fastest car here right now. So it's just a matter of just timing your passes, making sure that you do it cleanly, but also with respect.
Oh, and he gets hung up behind the leader of Joel Hafner, the Blackadder Motorsports roof there as they go down into the left and right handers here, and Legends Racing going to quickly follow suit as well. And that was one of those that was a bit of a sidewalk shuffle there, Alvin, from in terms of what we generally can see in these multi-class and multi-racing divisions, is that, you know, one of the drivers wants to go one way and the slow car in front does the same thing, and then they both try to cut back. Really one of the worst things that you can have happen in terms of just a hiccup, as we're currently getting a replay of that start right now. Again, all 3 classes really through very, very cleanly in that opening lap.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a fantastic start here to this race. Everybody was able to make it through that lap 1, turn 1, and we know that is really tight, but everybody in here today really patient. No problems with anybody, and like I just mentioned, during the beginning of the race, there was a problem with Nurburgring Racing Sunset that lost a little bit going into turn number 6, and well, they got lost it a bit, and they got hit from behind from Samba Racing, and they just had to come into the pits early to get some damage repair done.
We also had another penalty come from those opening laps. That's 4X Racing Fury. Apparently a bit of avoidable contact, and they had to do a drive-through for barging. They've already served that, and that's why they're so far down the order in your GT3 division. Looking back up through, looking at your prototype field, look at the lead that Sim Racing for Holland already has over Sim RC Emerald, Alvin, because Dennis Donna currently going into corner number 3, into corner number 4. Emerald is only barely just now turning into corner number 3. It's up to a 6-second advantage within about the first 10 laps. Dennis Donna and Sim Racing for Holland, they are absolutely on rails right now.
Yeah, and this is pretty much what all of us here have been waiting for, because we have seen Sim Racing for Holland from the first season of the Gathering of Tweakers Endurance Series. We knew that they were fast, but you know, they were just have a bad luck after bad luck after bad luck. And it kind of seems like after the second half of that second season, everybody started clicking in their favor, and pretty much they have been dominating from that point on. Yes, they've it's not that they have won that they have won every single race, but definitely that whatever happened during that second season, during that second half of the second season, sorry, it seems like they just clicked, and now they're pretty much on a roll that what they were looking for. However, just because they have been on a roll and pretty much dominating, let's not take away from from SimRC.de and Frostmaster Mivano, especially that race last round at Twin Ring Motegi between Sim Racing for Holland and Trustmaster Vivano, perhaps one of the classics here that we've had on the Gathering of Tweakers Endurance Series. They were going at it. They really wanted the win. There was even contact here and there, and this is something that we really wanted to see, just racing, them going at it. Clean, hard, but respect, and Trustmaster just went on it.
Currently getting a replay up of that number 191 backmarker racing machine. We talked about this, Alvin, about that chicane that you run on this GT car layout. You're so quick and you're so hard over the curves that if you take it a little bit too aggressively, or if you don't have the setup dialed in, that chicane can really easily spit you around. That's exactly what happened to Nicholas Helm in that backmarker racing number 191. He's currently back going, and we're back live here. So let's shuffle down and take a look at our C-Spec division, Alvin. Joel Hafner continues to lead in that Blackadder Motorsports number 366. Second place still running is Yuri Pakinen in that Score Sim Racing number 345 rough C-Spec. And let's talk about this rough for a second, because this, I think, in the coming weeks is going to be really the only series where this rough, for the most part, is going to be drivable, certainly within leagues. We know the advent of the Porsche, the addition of the Porsche to iRacing, and the Porsche that's coming out is exactly the Porsche that the rough C-Spec was essentially imagining and giving us, because due to legal reasons we couldn't get Porsche at the time when it released. But I think it's awesome to see a car that has been used through so many different endurance series, through so many different series in general. The rough C-Spec in particular is one that I've had a lot of fun with and has put on a lot of good endurance races. I think it's good to give this car at least a last couple rounds send-off before that Porsche, before that GT3 Cup spec car comes out and gets, essentially this just gets made obsolete and probably never driven again.
Yeah, and absolutely, I totally agree with you. Since day one that this rough C-Spec was released into iRacing, I think it's been one of the most popular cars in here in this service. A car that pretty much is really fun to drive. It is a driver's car, it doesn't have all the fancy driving aids that its bigger brother, the GT3 version has. The GT3 version, yes, it does have the traction control, it does have the ABS, all those fancy things that kind of make you not only drive it easier but also drive it harder. But this one, it has nothing like that. It pretty much has no downforce, no ABS, no traction control, downshifting. You really have to be careful because you can lock up the tires easy. So in a way, it's really good that this car is being used. But like you just mentioned, we are gonna get that Porsche Cup version, and I'm pretty sure that's something that we are waiting in here to see. And Randy, I don't know about you, but I am really looking forward for not only what the not only what the Cup version brings, but what other things Porsche can bring into iRacing.
Yeah, same here. As right now we're looking at this. This is the third place battle in your rough C-Spec division. That's Pure Racing Team GTC, SRR Motorsports, Team Bushfink Racing Blue, and SimRC DE Magenta just sort of in the background a little bit. They're not quite out of this battle, but they're about 4 or 5 extra car lengths back. So they're sort of just hoping they can catch up as these guys start racing each other hard. But they're going through the Dunlop hairpin now, and up in towards the Michael Schumacher S's. And Mark Duckman in this Pure Racing Team GTC car doing everything he can to try to stretch the gap here. But like you said, Alvin, especially this part of the racetrack is actually we got a car off in the dirt. Who is that? That's going to be Carl Modig in the SRR Motorsports number 380. You talked about it. The lack of downforce means that in those high-speed corners, really, really easy to lose the grip. I think he lost the front end and then lost the rear end. He's actually quite lucky that he didn't end up in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you go through this Schumacher S, and this car really doesn't really have that much downforce, and it kind of looks like it went just for a little bit of a wheelie, so that rear engine kind of helping with making that front end just a little bit light. But he just kept it kind of looks like he just kept his cool, kept it on the track, so it's also a good thing. 3 hours, plenty of time to recover.
3 hours and only 20 minutes have gone by, so still 2 hours 40 minutes racing here to go, and you're gathering a Tweakers Endurance Series. Sim Racing for Holland continues to lead by a 6-second margin over SimRC Emerald. Euphoria continues to lead by a lot. I don't know what the exact margin is. I'm showing 3 seconds, but it looks a little bit larger than that over Core Sim Racing AMG. And the Blackadder guys continue to get hounded by Sim Racing C-Spec here for the lead in your C-Spec division. And really, Alvin, what is it about these rough C-specs? Why do you think that the gaps that we're seeing form for the likes of Sim Racing for Holland and Euphoria Racing in your GT3 spec, why are those gaps in those divisions for the lead already stretching out so much larger versus what we're seeing in your C-spec division, which is Black Arter and Core Sim Racing? Yeah, they have a big gap over third, but we're not seeing quite as big of a division for the win as we're seeing in the other two divisions.
Well, there is a racing mentality that kind of goes with the GT3 and the Daytona prototype that is totally different from the C-Spec. Because with the C-Spec, you really have to be careful on how you drive the car. This is not to take anything from the C-Spec drivers. Yes, they are fast, they are good, but the mentality that it takes to drive a GT3 car and a prototype, it's like you have to push harder because this whereas the C-Spec, you really have to use all the mechanical grip that is available to you. On the GT3 and Daytona prototype, it's all about downforce. So the mentality that goes with it, not everybody can drive a downforce car because, it really takes confidence to go into that corner knowing that the downforce will keep the car, stuck to the track. You will make that corner thanks to the downforce. So it really takes a little different mindset to really push that car going into these corners, apart from the power that they have, of course, but it's more downforce more than anything else.
Third place battle continues to heat up though in your rough C-Spec division. Actually just gets a little bit spread out as they bring it up with Jake Robson and the Torque Freak Racing Sunset car coming through, but the battle for fourth and fifth is certainly on as Carl Modig to the outside with Jurgen Frank trying to get down to the inside into corner number one, not quite able to get it done just yet, so he's going to cycle in just behind still as they go through the Mercedes arena. And this is going to be, this is really what, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And you could argue seventh, the Sim RC Cyan. That's driven by Rennie Osterkamp just a few seconds back as well. So these guys all very, very close. This C-Spec division is definitely, I think, as of now, putting on the best racing we're probably going to see all race long.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And especially on this track where we don't really have that many high-speed corners compared to Spa-Francorchamps, which is going to be the last round for this series. It's pretty much medium to slow-speed corners, so it's really all about the mechanical grip that you have on these cars. And not only that, you also consider that, especially going through that Mercedes arena, it's really slippery, and that turn number two, it kind of looks like off camber. So you really have to be careful on how you get this car turning in, but also really important getting on that throttle because it's really easy to get this car to go around.
So this fight continues to heat up for third spot in your rough C-Spec division, but Mark Elkman is beginning to start stretching that gap over Team Bushwink Racing Blue, who's in fourth. Right now, though, it's still SRN and Sim RC Magenta fighting hard. And actually, Sim RC is going to look to the left as they go hard into the braking zone for the chicane, and it's going to be too wide into this quick chicane, and Jurgen Frank's actually going to get it done beautifully off the curb. But as I say that, SRN is going to be able to get the move down on the inside going into that final corner, and because of that, Carl Modig is going to get the run out of the corner, and Jurgen Frank's going to get past yet again, and Carl Modig already going on the defensive. Jurgen Frank looking to the inside in turn one again, and Carl actually kind of gave him the inside there in turn one there, Alvin. I don't think he really needed to, but I think that's going to move Jurgen Frank up the spot officially. Yeah, Carl didn't really get the undercut he needed, so for that reason, move Jurgen Frank and Sim RC Magenta up one spot in your C-Spec class.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you also consider that braking zone going into turn one, it is downhill, and I know that this is not the last time as Jurgen Frank just lost it just a little bit coming out of the Mercedes arena, but that is something that this C-Spec has for it. It is really not a hard car to drive, but you have to know what you're doing. Absolutely, and especially going into turn number one, going downhill, really easy to lock up your brakes, and not only that, but also lose the carb. So to me, it kind of looks like Carl Modig, he knew that something may go wrong if he pushed it just a little bit further. So he said, you know what, I think it's better just to lift just a little bit, call it a day. There's plenty of time to go, so for now, you go ahead. I'll catch you up later.
And we're going to have to keep our eyes on the penalty sheet here, Alvin, because Simona Maria Marcano of Thrustmaster Movano Racing Proto, going into turn 1 on his 15th lap, he actually got into the back of the Mad Cape Racing Mercedes-AMG GT3 and sent him around. I think that's likely to end up in an avoidable contact penalty. Probably going to see him in the pit lane serving some sort of penalty here in due time, because Mad Cape, they got stuck on the apex of turn 1 essentially for a very long time waiting for traffic to cycle through, and they've lost a ton of time and have cycled down to last within the GT3 division due to that spin.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And if there is something that Thrustmaster Movano, they are really a fast team. Absolutely no question about it. The drivers that they have, absolutely one of them. They have, perhaps on paper, they have one of the best teams that you can find out there. They are really fast, but if there is something that they really don't have going for them, it kind of seems like sometimes patience is not in their book, and they kind of seem like sometimes they are way too aggressive, especially on these long races, and it kind of shows long term that getting some sort of silly penalties where if they were just a little bit more patient, perhaps we can see them not only finish well more on the top of the standings, but perhaps winning more races.
Yeah, I mean, that is really one of the big points that you need to have to be a good multi-class racer. And it really doesn't matter what car you're driving, Alvin. It doesn't matter if you're in the faster class, if you're in the middle class, or even the slower class. You need to know when to be patient and when you need to be aggressive, and even when you can be aggressive, because sometimes you have no choice to be patient. And my mind goes back to last night's Roar Before the 24, which, although me and Cam were mostly working the event, you were in the TeamSpeak with us and were essentially spotting and doing some other work for us, just helping out in general. That was a race that I think in general pretty much was universally clean all the way around. Good respect, good patience shown by just about everyone. And then we come 30 minutes into this race and Thrustmaster Movano spins a Mercedes into turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that were not able to watch that Roar Before the 24 race, go ahead after this race is done, of course, and go ahead and look at it. That race, perhaps to start the 2017 World Tour events, I think it's one of the cleanest races that we have seen so far, and should be really an example to follow for anybody that wants to join a multi-class event. The class that they showed yesterday was absolutely, bar none, an example that everybody should follow. And not saying that this series doesn't have that standard, but perhaps if anybody asks how multi-class racing should be done, look for that race. Absolutely a fun, fantastic race. Hard but clean racing by everybody. And as I said that, Thrustmaster Movano just got a stop and hold penalty.
A stop and hold penalty, 10 seconds for Thrustmaster Movano. That's just as we get that replay done and away on your screen. So as they're going into turn 1 now, for their 18th time, they're going to have to come down into pit lane within a few laps here as we're back live. Sim Racing for Holland continues to dominate the field by a 10-second advantage in your DP division. Euphoria Racing currently has a several second advantage as well over Core Sim Racing, and Blackadder and Core continue to fight in your C-Spec division. They go up into the Michael Schumacher S, and this is going to be one of the toughest parts of the track for these C-Specs, Alvin, because really there's two parts of driving this car that's very, very difficult. Is being able to get on the brakes hard because all the weight just defaults to the rear of the car, and it's really, really, really easy to lock up. But like you said, this car has so much power and so little downforce that high-speed sections like that Michael Schumacher S can be really difficult in terms of keeping the rear end of that car in check. And actually, probably the most difficult part of the racetrack, I would imagine, for these guys, likely the chicane they're coming up on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you also top into that, this car, you can use the curves, but you really have to know how to time it, because this car really, you can hop into those curves and you can go two-wheeling it, and it's really easy to lose, especially when you consider that the engine is all the way to the rear. So like Gia said, way too lots of power, too little downforce, and when you combine all those, and especially with the brakes that it also has, you really have to be careful. Absolutely no question about it. And then you combine some fast corners like the Schumacher S and that Beetle chicane, you really have to be careful. You gotta time it on those curves. You gotta know what you're doing.
So Jari Packinen has actually, I think, done a good job this last time around to reel in Joel Hafner of that Blackadder Motorsports number 366. Last time by, that Core Sim Racing C-Spec 3/10 quicker than the Blackadder one, so that gap is coming right down. But as I say that, looks like the Blackadder car may be stretching the gap a little bit back out this time by, but not much. These two really ebbing and flowing over the course of this race, Alvin. They're basically trading lap times back and forth between one another.
Yeah, it is, and pretty much they have been the two leading C-Specs that we have been seeing all from the drop of the green flag, really getting to dominate this race. But guess what, Randy? This is not a 30-minute race. This isn't a 1-hour race. There is a 3-hour race, and with a 3-hour race, what comes up? Pit stops. And I'm pretty sure these two, even though they are pretty much running away from it, they are starting to. I'm pretty sure these teams are starting to do those very important calculations, making sure that they will make it. Perhaps on a 2-stopper, because from the numbers that I was able to run, these cars should be very close to run close to the hour. So in terms of fuel, they should be able to get to that magic 60-minute marks and perhaps just do it on a 2-stop race.
Actually, let's talk about that. When do you talk about the rough, you think that they're probably going to get themselves to the hour. The Mercedes, I think, will easily get themselves to the hour, because GT3 cars usually easily get themselves to the hour mark at most circuits. There's only a couple where it's really kind of a struggle. Monza is a good example, perhaps Daytona as well. When do you think we're going to be expecting to see those Daytona prototypes coming down onto pit road? Do you think they're going to be able to hit the hour as well? Or do you think they're not going to be able to do the easy peasy two-stop and likely have to do maybe 3, maybe just 4?
Well, if experience serves if previous races and experience serves any indication, we have seen that the Daytona prototypes, definitely it's one of the cars here that cannot make it into the hour, so it should be around 50 to 52 minutes more or less. So since this is a 3-hour race, I wouldn't be surprised if teams start coming into the 45-minute mark and make it an even 3-stopper.
On the number 119 machine, this is Acme Racing 2, apparently get into an incident here out there on the racetrack, trying to see where this was. Oh, this was a big incident, Alvin. This was going into the chicane that we talked about being problematic, and I'm not going to be surprised if we see Philip Morton get a penalty from this one. Hard on the brakes into the inside of that chicane, trying to dive up the inside of Josef Janowski, and he just simply drove right into the side of that Mercedes GT3. Philip was racing with Jackie Lauderman in the Apex Racing UK Academy Daytona prototype at the time, and before that reason, I think he likely outbroke himself, but he still caught that Mercedes in the left rear, sent him around, and Jack Lauderman, actually, shout-outs to Jack Lauderman, being able to avoid that incident in the way he did. That was very, very close to him just simply getting caught up in that incident.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic job there by everybody avoiding any further contact. But like you just mentioned, it wouldn't surprise me if the Acme Racing gets a penalty. But this is something that we get not only with the GT3s but with the prototypes. Since these are downforce cars, you really want to carry as much speed as possible through these turns. And sometimes, well, like I just mentioned, you really have to be patient. And when you have a downforce car, sometimes you really want to carry that speed. You really don't want to give up that momentum, and well, these things happen. So like you just mentioned, it wouldn't surprise me if the 119 ends up with a stop and hold penalty here.
And actually, that's not going to be the only one that gets a penalty. We're actually getting word that the Apex Racing DP also is going to have themselves a stop and hold. They have a 10-second stop and hold penalty for avoidable contact. However, before anyone goes shouting about them getting penalized for that incident, the incident that they're getting penalized for happened 5 minutes earlier. So somewhere within a couple laps, Jackie Lauderman did something not quite so nice, and as I say that, he comes down onto pit lane right now after almost losing the back end of the car going into that chicane. So these Apex guys not having a good run at this, almost getting caught up in that incident, having some sort of contact somewhere on the racing surface a few laps before that, and then almost spinning out there going into the chicane when he comes down to actually serve his penalty.
Yes, Randy, and this is something that we also have to consider. Everybody not only wants to race for that championship, but for that top 3. And now we are starting to see that some teams losing their cool and just going for that extra second, pushing just harder than what they have pushed in the three previous rounds. It kind of seems like desperation is starting to set in instead of patience, and we have seen a lot more incidents that we are used to seeing in this series, and I think there is that factor of trying to get those extra tickets. They really want to go there, but if you want to finish the race, you also have to be patient because, well, it is 3 hours, so you have to be patient if you want to end up finishing this race. Otherwise, you may be looking at the race from our YouTube channel. So hi everybody in the YouTube channel that is talking to us today, but we want the drivers to be driving, not on the channel talking about what could have been their own race.
So looking up and down the field right now, it seems that our course C-Spec battle for the most part has gotten itself strung out, Alvin. Right now, Yuri Pakkinen still very close to the back of the Blackadder leader, so that's still a very tight fight. But right now, Pure Racing Team, SimRC Magenta, and that Bushwink Racing blue car, really that 6-car train we had there for a little bit, that's pretty much got itself spread out and sorted. So that leaves essentially just Blackadder and Core Sim Racing really as our main fight out there on the racetrack. For the most part, everyone getting themselves strung out relatively quickly and easily here. Also note, we have Philip Morton of Acme Racing 2 coming down onto the pit lane, and that doesn't look like it's to serve a penalty, so that looks like pit stops already beginning potentially for your Daytona prototypes, but I still think that that's a little early if you're Philip Morton.
Yeah, it is kind of early, like you just mentioned. You are really going on the early window for what would be a 3-stop strategy for all the prototype teams. Like I just mentioned, I think the ideal strategy will be trying to even out those stops into 45-minute segments. I think it will give you the most flexibility going towards the end of the race. But trying to get early into this race, they already got a penalty, so might as well, let's just roll the dice, come in early, get this done. Perhaps that is what they need to go for the race winning end here today. They just had a penalty, so might as well let's just roll the dice now and see what happens.
We do have a fight out here on the racetrack for third within your GT3 division. This continues to be Euphoria Racing, Simi Hack, and Pure Racing Team GT3. Jonas Wollmeyer in that Pure Racing car, hard on the back of Daniel Campos as they go down into corner number 1 here, down this long front straightaway here at the Nurburgring GP track. And this is really the big fight, I think, right now within your GT3 division. Jonas Wollmeyer, the big look on the inside, but not quite close enough to get the out-braking maneuver, or even begun really. We're not quite able to pull alongside the Euphoria Racing car, but still, we know these Pure Racing Team guys like to be aggressive, Alvin, and that would have been the aggressive of aggressive maneuvers, I think, right there. Jonas really committed to it.
Yeah, it is absolutely. We are pretty much used to the Pure Racing Team guys being really aggressive, but there is something that I have seen this season, especially starting with not only with the Gathering of Tweakers Endurance Series, but also on the Neo Endurance Series. They are starting to exhibit more patience that we are used to seeing them. So that is definitely a good thing that they have going for them, because they will really need that patience, not only to win this race, but also going forward on the Blancpain GT Series. I think they Pure Racing Team are one of the top contenders in that series as well.
So still cycling through here, watching this third place battle here for your GT3 division as they work themselves by your C-Spec leaders as they come now down, getting ready to come onto this long back straightaway here. And Jonas Wollmeyer will be looking to use the draft here to try to reel in that gap as much as he can. He's definitely not close enough to make a move done into the chicane this time around, but he wants to reel in that gap as much as he can every single opportunity that he gets granted. Note that orange and black car up the road, that is Maxime Pauly, who's second in class, and then not actually Juan Segura is actually way further up the road than I realized he was, and Segura has been absolutely flying. Last time around for him was a 53.4. Maxime Pauly's lap time was a 54.3. Third in class, a 54.3. Jonas Wollmeyer, a 54.3. So all of these cars in the 54s, except your leader of Juan Segura, well down into the 53s.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Jonas Wollmeyer, it's really trying to get that message that they really need to get that third place. They really need to get past Daniel Campos here, because Juan Segura, he is definitely opening that gap. But it is a long race. We still have pit stops that can really throw a wrench into this race. And Randy, here's a good question for you. We saw on the last round of the Blancpain GT Series, we saw a team double stinting their tires. Is there a possibility that we will see this today as well?
Well, actually, in terms of the Blancpain Championship, we've not seen as much double stinting throughout the qualifiers, so I'm not really sure whether or not that's going to be something that plays into it or not. It really depends on the weather, and let's take a look at that. Mostly cloudy, 65 degrees, and actually, before I say that, Philip Morton, Acme Racing 2, coming down onto pit lane to serve a penalty. He had himself an avoidable contact, so that's going to be, I think, the fourth or fifth stop and hold for 10 seconds due to avoidable contact we've seen thus far this event. But talking about this again, mostly cloudy, 65 degree track temp Fahrenheit, and then 77 degree, ambient temp, 77 degree track temp. So that is relatively cool conditions, Alvin. And really, if you're going to think about double stinting the tires, that's what you want to see. It's going to be, it's kind of a hard question though, because typically what we saw in that Blancpain World Championship Series, when we saw teams really doing the double stint on the tires, it was more often not the BMWs, and that's due to the fact that the BMW is just simply lighter than the Mercedes and all the other GT3 cars. It played a lot nicer on its tires. That Merc, though, and I know you being from Phoenix are kind of fans of that Mercedes GT3 to a certain extent. I know Joris Thielen liked it, and you guys ran it as well in the 24 hours of Spa. We're actually currently watching a fight between the 223 and the 202. We're just basically following them around here on the racetrack. But, talking about that Mercedes, you know as well as I do that it likes to hurt its tires, but someone who isn't really worried about the quality of the rubber is Jonas Wallmeyer, because he just put up an awesome move on Daniel Campos through the Merc Arena. He's going to move himself up a spot in that GT3 division, now putting himself in third.
Yeah, definitely fantastic move there by Jonas Wallmeyer. That part really, it's really slippery. You really have to be really confident going into that turn number 3 of the Mercedes Arena, and Jonas Wallmeyer just did a fantastic overtake there. Jonas Wallmeyer, Pure Racing Team, third position. Next in line, Corsim Racing.
And actually, well, he can't worry about them just yet, because Daniel Campos in that Euphoria Sim Racing Simuac car is still close onto the back of Jonas Wallmeyer right now as they go through the Michael Schumacher S's. He's not quite as close I think he's like to be. Jonas Wallmeyer has driven that gap up just a little bit, but it's not been too much, and for that reason, I think that he might just be safe. It's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do here coming down this long back straightaway into do the right-hand kink, and you see right now, Daniel trying to get as much of the draft on that Mercedes, that Pure Racing Team Mercedes as he can, but really here, Alvin, this back straightaway here at the Nurburgring, it looks a lot longer than it really is, and these cars, while they punch a pretty big hole in the air, it's not quite enough for them to really be able to overlap one another unless someone gets a huge advantage of a run coming onto the back straightaway.
Yeah, it is, and I'm getting a report here that the Pure Racing Team C-Spec just were involved in a big incident, and as I go back, it's gonna look like going down into turn 1, they just lost it and they just got tagged by the SMRC.DE Magenta going into turn number 1. It kind of looks like a light tap, but it was just enough to got them crabbing right there. So they were just having a decent race there, and running in third place, and that contact, well, really unfortunate for them.
Actually, it's not even that they lost the back end, Alvin, because they actually got into another car. That actually wasn't the fault of... Actually, this is a really complicated incident because a lot of things happened all at once. You had the Pure Racing Team GTC car simply outbroke itself on the inside of a Daytona prototype, I think. I really think that there was no reason for that Pure Racing Team car to be there. You had Fabien De Jong, who was way on the outside going into turn 1. So Mark Elkman gets into the Daytona prototype, spins him, and then the Sim RC car gets back into the Pure Racing Team C-Spec. So I think overall, I would actually put the fault of that incident onto Mark Elkman, because I don't know, that just seems like a situation where that the Daytona prototype's on the outside of you, and he's going to try to, he's easily going to try to get that move done. Seems like there was no real reason for him to fight him to the apex. Granted, he did have Jürgen Frank all over the back of him, but with a car with 2 cars to your left, you really have to just sort of pull out of it.
Yeah, well, but you also have to consider that they are in a battle there for third place with the SimRC.DE, and it was just a matter of, you have that battle just behind you, and you got two faster cars just going around the outside. So in a way, Mark Elkman, it's like he just kept his car to the inside as much as he could. It's like he really don't have uh, anywhere else to go. It kind of looks like the Samba Racing just kind of didn't give it that much room to make that turn. So like you said, it's really complicated, but at the end of the day, that was just enough for Mark Elkman to get that contact, and it kind of looks like it will be race over for them.
Right now, looking at the 212 and the 292 in your GT3 field. This is Western Pennsylvania iRacing. I'm going to assume it's Pennsylvania because that's usually what PA means. And Graphite Racing GES. This is currently, I believe, in 6th and 7th in your GT3 field. No, excuse me, take that back. 7th and 8th. Graphite Racing GES trying to reel in that number 212 car up in front, being driven by Matt Chinoski. As Matt's going to look to the inside of his C-Spec going into corner number 1, and as long as he doesn't outbrake himself, that should be an easy move done, and yes, it is. And right now, Graphite Racing now has a bit of traffic between him and the car he's trying to reel in, and actually that's going to play well into the hands of Western PA Racing Yellow, Alvin, because he's really catching that C-Spec in the worst part of the track. Because even though the pace difference isn't enough, the main place where that rough is going to be worse than this GT3 car through that Merc Arena is going to be on the brakes, and you see that gap stretching, already up probably an additional second from what it was, and still Frank Oosterhouse in the Graphite Racing car behind that Porsche. Excuse me, behind that roof. It says Porsche on the back.
Yeah, well, and like you just mentioned, if there is a place that you really don't want to catch that traffic, especially if you're a GT3 or a prototype, is that Mercedes Arena, because there is absolutely no downforce on these C-Specs that they can do anything about it. And yes, it is kind of wide, but you also have the C-Spec really using as much track as possible, so it's really a matter of you can't really time it to kind of get a pass over there, and then you also consider that it's really slippery and somewhat off camber. Really bad spot for Graphite Racing there, so I'm pretty sure that Western PA enjoying this advantage while it lasts, because, well, now they got their own traffic to deal with.
Yeah, Jackie Lauderman getting ready to come through here, and he's going to look to the right-hand side as they go through the kink, and that's probably not going to help out Matt Chinoski at all, because you can usually stay flat through that kink in these cars, Alvin, but that little kink is a lot tighter than it looks, and if you get relegated to an outside line through there, a lot of times you simply have to lift off the throttle. I think there he was just able to keep it flat, and for that reason, didn't really lose much time at all, so he's going to be happy about that, because over the course of that past lap, with all the traffic that really affected that Graphite Racing car, Matt was really able to stretch that gap out by an extra second or so. 7/10 quicker was what he went last time around.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And something that for endurance racing, sometimes, yeah, it being a long race, sometimes having a 1-2 second gap to the next car to you, perhaps it may not seem like much, but sometimes that is all you need, mentally speaking, to kind of drive your own race, making sure that you can set everything you need, and try to take it in a more conservative approach. Not that you have to, but sometimes it kind of does help in that mental aspect long term. So Western PA really benefited from all these traffic, well managed by them.
Right now, looking at a fight between the 323, 380, and the 278 out there on the racetrack. That's going to be in your GT3 division, but that 278 machine is going to be one of the GT3 cars who I think has already gotten itself by. No, take that back. It was 378. Hugo just doesn't know how to tight. So it's a tight fight down here still, Alvin, and this fight, which we talked about, has gotten itself strung out a little bit, starting to form itself back up towards the end of this first stint. Right now, we're about 52 minutes into this event, and these three at the tail end of the top six. SimRC Cyan currently stretched out just a little bit. However, SRN and Team Bushmink still hot on each other's heels as they go up down this back straightaway and into the chicane.
Yeah, and also let's not forget these prototypes cars are coming in really fast, and they also have to take that into consideration. But SRM Motorsports and Team Bushwick Racing Blue saying, you know what, we are in front, let's get this battle going as the prototype goes in, and let's see if the SRM Motorsports can get a run here going into the start-finish line. But Team Bushwick Blue, not really a block, is just trying to catch a little bit of the draft there. May not seem a bit much, but that can be the difference between getting that position and losing it as well.
Yeah, sometimes you want as much of the slipstream as you can possibly get in these machines, and especially when you're trying to defend from a pass like he was there, Carl. That little bit of speed can really help. Nacho Yarnos with black flag for a 10-second stop and hold. That, I believe, was Samba Racing Team. So actually, I take that back. Pure Racing Team was found as the affected team, and Samba Racing Team, that purple Daytona prototype that you guys saw cut across the nose of that Pure Racing Team, the rough C-Spec there, are actually got penalized. The roughs are side by side though through the left and right hander, and Carl Modig is going to move himself up a spot here near GT3 or GTC field over Mike Equus in the Bush Peak Racing Blue Machine.
Yeah, pretty much. Mika Asquith there got a little bit of a lockup and just a little bit, and that is pretty much all Carl Modig needed to gain that position. But that has also allowed the SMRC.de to catch up to this battle, and well, the Legends Racing here trying to negotiate around these three C-Specs here. So really heads up driving there by who I guess it is. Yeah, it is Jamie Wilson. Jamie Wilson in the Legends Racing C7. You know, getting really patient, respecting this race, but Carl Modig there, the beneficiary in all this battle.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised to see Jamie Wilson being respectful out there on the racetrack. I'm certainly not surprised to see him going slowly, but I'm not surprised as well that he's out there being respectful. He is a stand-in for Legends today. That's why they had that stop and hold at the start of the race. And believe me, Jamie Wilson is not an upgrade for that team. They just needed someone to come out and drive the car. And Jamie doesn't want to be the sort of person that comes into the championship and causes a big incident like a certain someone did in the Gathering of Tweakers series back at Spa a couple years ago. But we won't talk about my past mishaps, as Micah Easthouse currently trying to reel back in that SRN Motorsports machine of Carl Modig as they go through the Mercedes arena here for what is their 28th time, as pit stops starting to come on the mind of all these drivers, Alvin.
Yeah, absolutely. Now Sim Racing for Holland here coming into the pits. This is pretty much one of the other strategies that I was expecting. I said that it was okay to do the 45-minute even stints, but you can also drive the tank as dry as you can and go for it. Yes, that means you will have 2 longer pit stops versus the 45, but that last stop will definitely be shorter.
So currently waiting for all these teams and all these drivers to hit the pit lane, because from memory, Alvin, have we seen any of your Daytona prototypes really come down the pit road? I don't think so. Sim Racing for Holland certainly hasn't. Same with Sim RC Emerald. Keep in mind that gap between first and second out there on the racetrack. In this first hour, Sim Racing for Holland and Dennis Dona have been absolutely massive, and they've stretched themselves out a 20-second advantage over second place in the field. So well done for them. But we haven't seen any of our leaders for any of these categories come down the pit lane, Alvin. And as he came across the stripe, Dennis Dona was only about 6 minutes off of that hour mark. Do you think that DP might just be able to get to that hour here at the Nurburgring just on the basis of the way the track is run?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if they could, because we know that this Daytona prototype is not really able to make it, as the SMRC.de coming into the pits right now. So I think they won't be able to make it into the hour mark. It's like they're maybe 2-3 minutes short from that hour mark. So it's really close unless you go into an extreme fuel saving mode. So let's see if perhaps one or two teams trying to attempt that strategy. Who knows?
Dennis Donna is going to go around again, so that's going to be an additional lap for Dennis Donna and Sim Racing for Holland. That's 2 extra times around the racetrack that they're going to go. And apparently they already pitted and we somehow missed that. So Alvin, how did you let me ramble on like that, not knowing they hit the pit lane?
Well, I just told you that they just came out of the pits and we were talking about that. But since we were talking, there was only 1 or 2 teams that went that extra lap. One of them was the SMRC.de Emerald. They went 1 extra lap compared to Sim Racing for Holland. But like we were just talking, for these Daytona prototypes, it's really hard to make it into the hour mark, not only in this track but pretty much on all the tracks here in iRacing. So, but it wouldn't surprise me if perhaps SMRC.de, seeing that they were able to go that one extra lap. Perhaps they could try to, who knows, maybe they can try to eke one extra lap, knowing that they can try to do it, because if SimRC.de wants to win this race, definitely they have to do something different from Sim Racing for Holland, because Sim Racing for Holland is pretty much absolutely dominating this race in here today.
Actually, looking at your GTC division, Alvin, Core Sim Racing C-Spec, your second place team, hitting the pit lane right now, and Blackadder Motorsport is going around another time. Sim RC Magenta is going around another time. SRN is going another time, as well as Team Bushwink. So, Core Sim Racing Group not getting the fuel economy of their competition, Alvin, and that can really hurt them, because looking at the time, looking at the clock on the time, it was about 56 minutes the last time Dustin Hickman came around and scored a lap. However, we're getting very, very close to that hour mark, and if Core can't hit the hour but everyone else can, that's going to make things really tight on them.
Yeah, it is absolutely one of the things that we do have to consider here, because the C-Specs, they are really, really close to making it into the hour mark. So by Core Sim Racing, the C-Spec, coming in one lap early, that really starts putting some question marks into what is the fuel mileage that they are getting. And considering how close the C-Specs have been in here today, battling against each other, that could mean the difference between first place and perhaps going 6th, 7th place, who knows.
So Mika Easthouse currently dealing with some traffic, and actually that traffic's moving on to the SRN Motorsports C-Spec out in front. That's that Bushfink rough C-Spec driven by Mike Easthouse, and we're currently waiting to see when they come down onto the pit lane, because if they have to come down this time, they're going to be just short of the hour. But I think with the way the pit stop time will work out, Alvin, they'll be more than okay in terms of when they go back out there on the racetrack. They'll be something like an hour 58, so they will have effectively gone past that hour. But that said, if they can go by around even again, then that's going to be a huge advantage for them. We have a fight right now. This is for second place in your GT3 division. Jonas Wallmeyer has done a very good job to stretch the gap over the 223 Euphoria Racing Simuhack car, and he's on the back of that Core Sim Racing AMG in the 234 here at the tail end of this first stint. Jonas Wallmeyer wants to be put up into the top two, I think, before the pit stops begin.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And like you were just mentioning about the C-Specs, yeah, they may not make it just into the hour, but well,
they're pitting now.
But by the way the pit stops work, when you take the time they spend into the pits and all the service and all that, it really does add up, and they cannot make it into the hour. So overall, this is pretty much for the C-Specs. It's pretty much just trying to make it to the hour in terms of pit stops. But for the GT3s here, it is absolutely no question about it that they will make it way past the hour, as pretty much we are pretty much just over an hour 30 minutes done with this race. And Jonas Wallmeyer running there in third place, I think he wants to take that second place before they come into the pits.
Let's see if either of them are going to come down on the pit road. We saw a couple of GT3 cars enter the pit lane a lap or so ago, but they were back markers. But all of your leaders are going around again, and this is going to comfortably put them inside the hour, Alvin, especially when the pit stop time cycles through, because in these cars, for those who are unaware, Alvin kind of talked about it, but these GT3 cars, I think, have the longest pit stop of all these of these three cars of all the divisions, because they have an extremely large fuel tank, and they do the fuel tank and the tires separately. So because of that, you're going to be talking about a roughly minute and 40 or so second pit stop when these guys come down on a pit lane. And that's why we talked about a little bit earlier, about 20 minutes ago, people may be skipping tires. The reason you'll skip tires is that within these GT3 cars, it takes 7 seconds to change every single tire. And if you think you have the tire life and the advantage to do so, if you think you can skip tires, that's potentially 30 seconds saved in the pit lane. And it's a lot easier to save 30 seconds in the pit lane than it is to find 30 seconds on the racetrack.
Yeah, and you are right there, Randy. So, it wouldn't surprise me if the top 3 teams here in the GT3, the Euphoria Sim Racing, Rainbow Sim, Core Sim Racing, and Pure Racing, they try to go for the strategy to run the tank as dry as you can and try to make that last stop as short as possible. And that can also mean, since they're not gonna be doing 1 hour, the 1 hour stint for the last part of the race, somebody can run the gamble of not changing tires. So who knows?
We have actually a penalty that's being investigated right now for barging. This is the team that's been protested is Western Pennsylvania iRacing Yellow, and the affected team is the 292 of Graphite Racing. And those were cars that, if I remember right, Alvin, they were racing a little bit ago in the race, so not quite sure what may have happened. That timestamp from when that came in was just before the hour, so it was roughly 3 laps or 6 minutes ago. So we'll try to get a replay of that up on your screen, and we'll definitely going to continue monitoring the penalty sheet for when that comes through. But all your GT3 leaders, they're going to go around again, and this is going to be interesting for me, Alvin, because this is where you're really going to talk about double stinting the tires, because when you want to double stint the tires, you don't just double stint the tires. It's kind of a two-pronged strategy. The first thing you have to do is you need to make this first set of tires go as long as possible. That way that second set of tires is on the car as short as possible. And right now, all these guys driving as deep into the hour as they are, I mean, they're going to be probably, what, an hour and 4 minutes minimum into this race by the time they come down pit lane. That tells me that at least one of these teams could be thinking about doing the double stint, because normally you could just pit right now. You could pit right now and you could be hunky-dory making it to the end.
Yeah, and this is the part of strategy that is really fascinating on these GT3 cars, knowing that you have the fuel and tires since they are done separate. Now the question is, if you are double stinting the tires and knowing how this race is going, do you want to double stint the tires on the next stop, or do you want to leave that double stinting option until the end of this race? That is the question that will be answered in a couple of minutes time when these top three come into the pits.
So Euphoria Racing, Rimbolsing are currently going down the back straight towards that chicane, and this is going to be interesting to see as actually the second and third place battle gets strung out a little bit by your C-Spec leader, and that's definitely not what Jonas Wollmeyer wanted to see before the pit stops, because that basically means he's no way he's going to be able to get that job done. Leader hits the pit lane. Does Core Sim Racing go around another time? They're currently going through the chicane right now, and they're going to actually, yes, they will. They are going to go around another time. So Maxime Pauly, as well as Jonas Wollmeyer, getting some very, very good fuel economy here, and this is definitely noteworthy, Alvin, because that isn't a huge gap that Euphoria Racing has, and every single lap Core and Pure can go, that's going to mean a shorter pit stop towards the end of the race.
Yeah, and like we were just talking about, it can also play into that double tire stinting strategy. So this is something that we have to keep an eye on, as they are the Euphoria Racing just had a driver change with Alberto Ray coming into the car. So that kind of tells me that they are not thinking into double stinting the tires now. But hey, who knows? Maybe Alberto Ray is a great driver with worn tires. So let's just wait until this pit cycle for them is done, and let's see if they go for tires.
So they should be going for tires on this first cycle, especially with the driver swap. Normally what you want to do is that you want to pair your driver swap for when you are changing tires. So generally speaking, if they're planning on not doing tires, Alberto Ray has to stay in the car for the final stint. Otherwise, there is a bit of an overlap. Doesn't look like the tires haven't gone up yet, but still that car is going to be getting gas. So we're going to keep an eye on your Core Sim Racing and Pure Racing team guys currently going through your Michael Schumacher S, and they're going to roll away. Can anyone tell me what that pit stop time was? I didn't notice the car getting jacked up.
It was 1 minute 3 seconds, so it may seem that they may have skipped tires.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. We're going to have to keep an eye on the pace, because that does seem like a relatively quick stop. And it is, you know, like you said, we normally would have seen what the car get jacked up. Let's see what happens to Maxime Pauly as well as Jonas Wollmeyer, because they're probably going to come in very, very soon. Maxime Pauly is coming in now, and actually, Pure Racing Team is going to go around again. So very, very, amazing fuel economy coming from Jonas Wollmeyer and Pure Racing Team GT3. Going 2 extra laps over one of your leading class, and another one has been quite as quick as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So now Jonas Wollmeyer, well, it really isn't surprising to us. He is leading this race. Yeah, but it is due to the fact of how the pit cycle is doing, but it is also it's also really amazing the fact that they are able to go this long into this stint. So I think as it stands right now, even though Euphoria Sim Racing had a 9-second advantage over Core Sim Racing and Pure Racing Team, I think we have to consider that definitely Pure Racing Team are in the running for the win in here today.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say so, because Jonas Wallmeyer and that Pure Racing Team machine, they didn't get the qualifying they would have wanted, and they started off a little deeper in the field than they would have desired, but their pace has been extraordinary, and their ability to, you know, I mean, that's the thing that's interesting, is that Jonas Wallmeyer hasn't been driving in such a way that I would guess he was saving gas. He's simply been outpacing a lot of his competition, and the fact that he's able to do that while still going further on fuel is I mean, that's quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic racing there by Jonas Wallmeyer. He's pretty much going now for around, if my telemetry is correct here, he is going for 36 left into this and not only that, but also the NIB Racing 208 with Fabian de Jong. They are the only two teams here that I'm seeing that they are going for 36 laps right now, as Jonas Wallmeyer comes into the Vito chicane. Let's see if he comes into the pits. Yes, he's coming in. So 36 laps should be the absolute maximum that we will be seeing from these GT3 cars in here today.
Actually, let's see if NAB Racing is going to come down the pit lane, because that's going to, if they go around again, even though a little too far down the order for it to really matter, the fact that you could go a 37th lap would be pretty big, but no, he can't. Yeah, as they comes down pit road. So Jonas Wallmeyer driving down the pit lane here. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not he's going to stay in, or if one of his teammates are going to hop into the car. There's a slew of Pure Racing Team drivers registered on the server right now. Jonas Wallmeyer actually will be getting out of the car, and will it be, if I had to guess, it's going to be Lars Conrad actually getting into that car. So very interesting there that they're going to be doing the driver swap now, and they do have 3 other drivers they could access going into that final stop and that final stint. Andres Almensberger, Rico Schmerich, as well as Patrick Pischel are all registered on the server. But Lars Conrad going to be taking over this middle stint here, Alvin, and he has some big shoes to fill based on what Wallmeyer just did through that first hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Lars Conrad really will have his job cut out for him. He's going to pretty much be released until what is pretty much a battlefield in here, because we saw Jonas Wallmeyer being in that battle for second place and perhaps even the lead. So Lars Conrad definitely, as soon as he is released from the pits in here, he really has to put pedal to the metal and not let any second go away.
Currently waiting to get released, waiting, revving the car a little bit, so something tells me he's probably going to be rolling away soon. Car comes off the jacks and he rolls down into corner number 1. Where is Euphoria Racing and Court Sim Racing? Court Sim Racing is coming down onto your front straightaway now. Where is Euphoria, your leaders? They were actually going into turn number 3 of the Mercedes Arena into corner number 4. So they're all basically going to cycle back in line where they were, Alvin, when they came back in. Doesn't look like anyone really picked up or lost any spots in the pit lane sequence. Well,
if we look into it, Pure Racing Team were running in third place.
That's a good point.
They were running in third place before all this pit cycle started happening to them. So now they are into second place, but look who's in third place, Euphoria Racing Simulhack. So we are kind of surprised what happened to Corsim Racing there, perhaps on their outlet with cold tires, a little bit just struggling there, trying to keep the car on the track, but they are not running in fourth place.
Yeah, so let's look through some of your Daytona prototype field, which actually, I mean, this DP field, Alvin, they've really gotten themselves strung out. There's really not a lot to talk about. No real fights happening. All you can really do is monitor the pace of the leaders, and the pace of the leaders, simply put, has been fast, and that's been Dennis Dona still out to a 26-second advantage, and his last time by with a 47.2. Dustin Hickman and Sim RC Emerald did it 48.1, so 9/10 of a second going the way of Sim Racing for Holland basically every time around. Looking back down to your GTC division, Blackadder seems to have really stretched the gap on that core Sim Racing car, Alvin, and do you think that might be a short fill, or do you think that's just speed? As I believe driver swap came through for both of those teams. Dominic Engel getting into that roof C-spec for Court Sim Racing, with Sven Kamerats getting into the leader.
Yeah, pretty much after this first round of pit stop, now we are starting to see some of the strategies here starting to play out. prototype class, it is pretty much it's been pretty much sim racing for Holland. Absolutely no question about it. They have been dominating this race from the get-go. GT3 really interesting. How far can you stretch it? That is the question of this race for the GT3 class in here. And so far it kind of looks like pure racing team, with seeing that they have been able to go the furthest on a full tank of fuel. They kind of seen the favorites. And in the C-Spec class, it's all about trying to keep the car on the track under pressure, because everybody, even though after this cycle of pit stops, it kind of seems to be spreading out, we are seeing that the C-Specs here, they can really battle, they can really go for it. So that battle really definitely not over yet.
Actually, real quick, Alvin, what was the pit stop time difference between Euphoria and Pure? Because Pure comes out in second, and that gap between first and second looks a lot bigger than it was before the pit stop started.
Well, if I looked into it, it's really interesting, because the gap between Euphoria Sim Racing Reimbursing versus the Pure Racing Team GT3, there was the difference in time, it was 7 seconds. But we also have to remember that Pure Racing Team were able to go a lot longer compared to everybody else. Yes, they were gonna spend a little bit more time compared to the other teams in the pits, but with the pace that they have shown, and knowing that if they keep this strategy, they're not gonna have to spend that much more time compared to the other teams coming into the last round of pit stops. And for this GT3 teams, it's gonna be a 2-stop strategy, absolutely no question about it. Anybody that tries to do a 3-stopper, there's something that can justify doing a 3-stopper, but from what I'm looking here in the live timing and the standings, there is nothing that is indicating that anybody is looking for a 3-stopper.
I think you're absolutely right, Alvin. You're pretty much locked into that 2-stop strategy. Yeah, but we're going to step away for the first time here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live, but we're not going to go to adverts. You enjoy your RaceSpot TV fan immersion as we ride on board with the Core Sim Racing AMG, currently driven by Marcus Blom, 4th place in class, trying to chase down Euphoria Racing Simuhack. Don't go away. Welcome back here to RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. Hope you enjoyed the few laps of fan immersion on board with that Core Sim Racing AMG driven by Marcus Blom, and he's done a good job, Alvin, over those couple laps to really reel in the gap, both of Euphoria Racing Simuhack, but actually looking, Lars Conrad has fallen into the clutches, both of Euphoria, as well as that Core Sim Racing AMG GT3. It's actually the spinner of the Mercarina. Who's that? That is actually Nicholas Pedersen in your WR Racing GOT car. He is currently second to last in this race, currently in your GT3 division, but still coming around in a very unfortunate place, right in front of most of your leaders.
Yeah, this is one of those that you really have to be careful about it. But we were just talking about the strategy that Pure Racing team has been running on this race, and I don't know exactly what's happened to them, that Lars Conrad has slowed down just a bit, and that definitely has allowed the Euphoria Racing and Corsen Racing to really close up that gap. And it kind of seems like, even though we were starting to call them as they were the favorites, but as I look into it, and just going into that Mercedes arena, they had to slow down just a little bit and avoid some race-ending contact there, and that has allowed the Euphoria Sim Racing, and it kind of looks like so far they have recovered, but Corsen Racing now into the rear end of that Pure Racing team.
Yeah, they're very, very tight. We saw a short side-by-side a little bit between corners number 11 and 12, which saw that Core Sim Racing car get a little bit loose, not quite able to get the job done. I think Lars just quite simply doesn't quite have the pace that Jonas Wallmeyer did. He's certainly not slow by any means, but he's losing that 2 to 3 tenths of slow that he really, really needs to be able to keep up this with this group that he's been essentially thrust into. Core Sim Racing looked to the inside in corner number 1, but they're not going to quite go for it just yet. We'll go back single file and hit the apex at turn 1, and Marcus Blom is going to currently try to put together some sort of move. And if you're Marcus Blom, Alvin, you need to get this job done quickly, because every single lap that you're behind Lars right now, Carlos Villegas in the Euphoria Racing Simuhack car is just stretching the gap more and more and more. Every corner, every lap is additional time lost.
Yes, and when you consider that pretty much running 1-2 right now is Euphoria Sim Racing, I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps Euphoria Sim Racing is running a little bit of the good teammate there, and if they get close, perhaps they start to slow down just a little bit to make sure that Euphoria Sim Racing reimbursing, they can run the strategy that they want and go for the win. But Corsen Racing and Pure Racing team, they know that may happen, so perhaps they may try to work as a team right now. And I know that sounds kind of weird considering that they are from different teams, but try to work together, make sure that they can get around that Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack and start hunting down that first place.
So they're trying to reel them in every bit they can. Lars Conrad seems to have picked up the pace, it looks to me, Alvin, because he didn't lose that much time to Marcus Blom over the course of this lap, or at least Marcus Blom hasn't been, he hasn't had the opportunity to try to throw a maneuver down. So I think Lars Conrad, maybe that setup just doesn't work that well in the early runnings, because you have to think, Alvin, Lars Conrad in that, Jonas Wallmeyer in that opening stint, he was he wasn't off the pace at the beginning of the race, but he was kind of just average of everybody. Actually, that Core Sim Racing machine looks to the inside again going into turn 1, not quite able to get it done. But that Pure Racing team car, that Merc, it really seemed to come into its own towards the second half of that first stint. And that's really where I think Jonas Wallmeyer went from being one of the quicker cars on the track to maybe being the quickest car on the track.
Yeah, and definitely Pure Racing team, that they are no stranger for what endurance racing is in today here for iRacing. So I know Pure Racing team is kind of running the patience game as well in a way. So, and like you just mentioned, the first part of the stint for the Mercedes, since the car is heavy, you also add 120 liters of fuel, it gets ultra heavy. So of course this car really is definitely a heavy car to go around the track. But as you get through that second or perhaps third quarter of that stint, the car is really light, and with the horsepower that this car has, and this is one of the cars that really has a good top speed compared to the other GT3 cars, it really starts opening its legs. And you know, also getting that car just a little bit lighter, it definitely does help with getting this car around the turns, as we got the Sim Racing for Holland, the overall leader of this race, going around Core Sim Racing, and now looking to get around Pure Racing Team.
Sim Racing for Holland is going to get through both of them pretty quickly and easily as they go into that chicane. And Lars Conrad, his mirror is absolutely full of Marcus Blom as they go into the final corner here. And Marcus, you know, I still think Marcus might have speed, but Lars has definitely picked up the pace from his first couple laps, because he really struggled to get up to speed on his opening laps, running 54s and 55s, even a 56 in there. But that last time around, a 53.7 and then a 54 flat that time around for Lars Conrad. So Lars, I think just getting in the car, he's a little bit cold the opening couple laps, lost himself a little bit of time, but he's starting to get back into his own, and actually he's starting to stray lap times with that Euphoria Racing Semi-Hack car out in front, starting to reel him back in.
Yeah, and as we talk about that Euphoria Racing reimbursing also doing a 152.9, so this is starting to turn into a little bit of a give and take when it comes to lap times. But Pure Racing Team and Corsin Racing, they need to get around that second place Euphoria Sim Racing car for their strategy to work. However, we also what Pure Racing Team and Corsin Racing have for them, they were two of the cars here in the GT3 field that were able to go longer than anybody else. So they also know that they're going to spend a little bit less time compared to the two Euphoria Sim Racing teams in the pit. So that's also that's one little thing that they have in the back. And yeah, it could be 6-7 seconds, but right now, as we look at the gap from Pure Racing Team and Core Sim Racing to the first place Euphoria Sim Racing reimbursing, only 13 seconds. And at this pace, they are pretty much close now to that Euphoria Sim Racing Semi-Hack as they go through the DRS Racing, trying to get around the seat spec. And let's see if they can clear them before the chicane, and the answer is yes, they can definitely go around them. So now this is a 3-car battle here for second place, and really important Racing and Core Sim Racing to get around them.
Yeah, they're going to be pushing really, really hard. And right now, if you're Marcus Blom, you're kind of in a weird situation, because you've been trying to get around Lars Conrad now for several laps, and Lars went from being 1 or 2 seconds off the pace to being well on pace, if not one of the quicker cars out there on the racetrack right now, to now you suddenly have a 3-car train and a 3-car battle, and you're going to have a situation where if you're Marcus Blom, what you do depends a lot on what Lars Conrad does, because if Lars goes to make a move, you really don't want to put yourself in a 3-wide predicament, really, even this still early in the race. Even though we're still coming up on the first half of this race complete, it's still a little early to go for any YOLO 3-wide maneuvers, especially at a track like the Nurburgring. That said, if Lars doesn't go for a move, that pretty much opens the window for you. But as I say that, Acme Racing comes through, and they're going to divide that fight up just a little bit as Sam Fitzpatrick gets around the Core Sim Racing car, now setting his sights on the Pure Racing Team car, and he should be get by them quickly. Will he get to Euphoria on the brakes? No, and actually, no. Pure Racing Team going to be relegated to the outside through the Dunlop hairpin, and Core Sim Racing, luckily for Lars Conrad, overcooked the entry to that Dunlop hairpin, and because of that, couldn't try to slip by on the inside.
Yes, and like you just mentioned, right now Marcus Blom is kind of like in this situation. Should I go for it, or should I just stay behind it? And from the looks of it, it looks like he is going to stay right behind Lars Conrad, because they know that they are faster than Carlos Villegas right now. So it's more now of a matter, as I say, that it looks like Core Sim Racing may be going for that third place. Need to overtake him, and if you're not gonna do it, might as well let me go for it.
Marcus really harassing the mirrors there of Lars Conrad, but unfortunately that kind of cost him, because he came through that chicane after swinging left and swinging right, and the back end of that car stepped out a little bit on the exit of that chicane coming into the final corner, and he lost himself about half a car length or so, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're trying to set up a pass, Alvin, that extra little bit of time that you lose yourself really can be a lot, and that can be the difference between being able to put a move on and essentially having no opportunity to do so at all.
Yeah, it is, and you know this is one part that you really have to time your overtakes because you know that you are in a strategy that you kind of need to work together to kind of reduce the lost time as much as possible. But you also sometimes, if you're the car training, sometimes you kind of get just a little bit that desperate and you really want to go ahead and that fighting here and there. Yeah, it's a tenth here, a tenth there, but then you start adding it up, and we're not talking about tenths, then we're talking about seconds lost. And up in here with the strategy that they have, it is imperative that perhaps it kind of looks like they are working together, but it is also imperative that they must get around that Euphoria Simu hack if they want to get their strategy working.
Looking back to one of the other divisions, we're currently having a very close fight between three of your rough C-Specs. This is Lucas Stolzer and SimRC Magenta. Actually, the SRN car very, very slow. There's one SRN car slow, and Corey Davis swung around to the left side on the grass there, coming down the back straightaway. That was an awesome move by Corey. I mean, normally I'm not really an advocate for driving on the grass, but I don't think Corey really had anywhere to go, and with the traffic that was behind him, I think if he would have checked up, there would have been a very big incident. So very well done by Corey, very heads-up driving, seeing that slow team car and really having no other choice to try to avoid a major incident, I think, going on to that back straightaway, swinging to the left side, driving it across the grass, and very well held by him to come back onto the racing surface without losing that back end.
Yeah, I gotta say that is really fantastic heads up there by the 380 SRM Motorsports, you know, trying to overtake that. And you know, sometimes it's not like you want to go to the outside, but sometimes you just have to do it if you want to avoid any major incidents. So really heads up driving there by Corey to avoid any major disaster.
The number 177 car came down for its second pit stop of the race. So, and that's actually interesting to me, Alvin, because as I look through, that's an early stop because Dennis Donna in the Sim Racing for Holland car, he came down on lap number 31. And we talked about that SimRC Emerald car. He went a lap longer than that Sim Racing for Holland car did on that first stop, and he came in really early. So maybe chasing some sort of trouble or gremlin in that car, but that was a very, very early second stop for the number 177.
Yeah, well, but then you kind of look at it, and since we mentioned that here the Daytona prototypes, they know that definitely they are not gonna make it on two stops. It's really hard. So perhaps SimRC.de, they just realized that they are not gonna make it into a two stopper. So perhaps they call an audible and decided to run a really short second stint here. It may not look like much, but the stop, from the looks of it, it was only 15.9 seconds, and that's also just enough time to change the tire. So perhaps we can see a strategy call here for SimRC.de, trying to undermine what the pace that Sim Racing for Holland has been doing today, which, to be honest, it's not short of amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the pace has been very, very amazing from Sim Racing for Holland, and SimRC Emerald is doing everything they can. They're throwing the kitchen sink and the rest of the kitchen at it to try to reel in that 20-second, or I think it's up to almost 30 seconds now, disadvantage they had. Having another close fight within your GT3 field. This is 223, 202, and 234. This is still Euphoria, Pure, and Core, that fight that we've been watching for essentially since that first round of pit stops, Alvin. And Pure Racing Team has started to stretch the gap on Marcus Blum. So Marcus has started to lose the back of that Pure Racing Team car driven by Lars Conrad, and both Euphoria and Pure are starting to pull the gap there. I think that Pure Racing Team car, Alvin, likely just doesn't work well in those opening couple laps. Because even looking at Jonas Wollmeyer's first few laps, they were a bit off pace compared to what he was doing through the rest of the stint as well.
Yeah, it is that definitely like you just mentioned. It kind of looks like the car is really not set up for that opening part of the stint. It kind of looks like it's not really that well set up. But then that second part of the stint, it looks like it definitely wants to go for it, and so it kind of looks to me like Lars Conrad is starting to get to grips with the car right now. So wouldn't surprise me if now going into the second part of this stint, he really start going for it.
Actually, we're going to have a situation here, and we need to talk about this currently encountering or actually, we're going to hop to a commercial real quick. We'll be back shortly. Don't go away.
So obviously, you guys have come from the virtual world to reality. What do you think about a sim racer coming in the real world? What were your expectations coming in?
Coming from iRacing, a computer program basically down here to a real world scenario where you got all these guys with all these years and years and years and years of experience that are also using iRacing as a tool to come out and run against those guys and beat them and finish ahead of them and show them, there's a thing or two you might be missing is fantastic. I mean, that's a skill that I know I don't have, and I can appreciate it because I'm terrible at iRacing.
Glenn was able to come into the team. We did a lot of preseason testing, actually a full season's worth of testing before we even started the season. And he came in, there was a lot of sectors that he was the fastest guy out of our team. And Sparky and I are looking at data, trying to catch up to him through some turns. And of course, some places Sparky will be the fastest or I'll be the fastest, and Glenn is able to learn from, what we're doing and vice versa. So it was excellent to see his pace right off of the bat, and speed was never a worry. It's about qualifying well. Qualifying is very difficult, and pretty important in this series. And so is, being able to make effective passes without contact. It's very difficult to pass in these cars, so, it's not easy being here.
I think the level of ultra competitiveness in here, where when normally when you make a pass, you're making a pass with 2 cars involved. But if we're making a pass in this series, you have to remember there's 5 cars waiting behind you. If you mess up that pass, they're going by you.
Yeah, it's like sharks.
Yeah, you're surrounded by sharks. But no, it's been I've been very surprised and very pleased with it. And obviously, I have the 2 champions I'm sitting between. John actually statistically is the most successful MX-5 Cup driver in the world. He owns every record that you would want. None of the bad records.
Maybe some of them. I don't know.
Maybe some of those. And Sparky's one of the quickest guys in the paddock, and obviously the champion now. So. I couldn't have picked a better team to be with 6 Sideways. I'm looking at what everybody in the paddock calls gold. I mean, they will pay to look at John and Sparky's data, and I get full access to it, and I get to see where I'm doing well and see where I can improve. And I've been really pleased with my progress.
Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live, as you guys are seeing what is actually a relatively rare occurrence within the league and endurance racing format here on the iRacing service, and that is red flag conditions that have been caused by some technical troubles. And Alvin, this is, I think, the second time I've ever seen this happen. The only other time I've seen something like this even occur was the RaceSpot 24 Hours of Spa, which was the first major endurance race ever held on iRacing that used that driver swap feature. Within that race, we had a server failure, and Will Vincent and all the race control crew that were involved with that race did a phenomenal job getting that race back sorted. But again, it's happening here, and we're going to take you down essentially what's happening. Technical issues come up, and it essentially makes it impossible for the drivers to drive in such a way that can be predictable and arguably safe. So here on Gathering of Tweakers, they call what is a red flag, and all the cars essentially engage the pit limiter and they drive back to the pit lane. And using the resources of live timing, the stewards will try their best to get the field resituated in the order it was properly, get people their laps back and everything, and then we will get the field rebunched up and we will be going back to green flag racing. Looks like most of the cars currently on the pit lane, but I think there's some people who might have dropped out of the server that still need to get back in, Alvin, and we're going to be down for a little bit. But I mean, it's a bit of a bummer because we were having a good race, but some battles that got strung out now get themselves restacked up.
Yeah, it is, and absolutely heads up for the Gathering of Triggers Endurance Series organization for getting this procedure, and trying to make this as fair as possible. Yes, this is something that we in the sim racing world, this is something that we had to deal with. Of course, nothing is perfect, and we all know that, and we acknowledge that while this is all fun and we try to make our best with what we have, there are certain things that we cannot control, and one of those sometimes it's the server. So very very important to have kind of like a plan B, or kind of like an escape plan of some sorts, to trying to get these things sorted out, and making sure that there is the least amount of downtime as possible. And especially when you consider that something like this, if not addressed in a way that we are doing it, it can really have a major effect on a championship. So having a procedure like this, trying to sort things out, really heads up driving here for the Gathering of Triggers, and for the Gathering of Triggers Endurance Series organization. Yes, it may take a while, but trust me, everything will be sorted out.
Yeah, so we're going to have some dead air where Alvin and I are essentially going to try to make red flag conditions exciting. And for those who are curious, much like in the real world, once the race clock starts, the clock does not stop ticking down. That happens in real life as well. Whenever you get a rain delay due to a red flag in, say, the WEC, the 6 hour timer starts, and it essentially just, that's it. I can recall a 6 hours from Fuji a year or two ago where Toyota essentially got gifted a win because the entirety of the 6 hours of Fuji was spent under essentially red flag conditions. I think there was a total of 6 laps run under caution. So this is exactly how it's done within the real world. And this is an issue that also cropped up last night in that Roar Before the 24. There seems to be an issue with the server farm. Even some DDoS attacks, not necessarily targeted at iRacing, but if they're targeted at the server farm iRacing uses, then iRacing is going to be a victim regardless. And in that race last night, Alvin, you essentially got disconnected and that was race over. Here, yeah, we might lose 10, 15, 20, even up towards to a half hour of the race. It actually looks like cars are starting to roll back off. Actually, yes, they are. The cars are rolling themselves back out there on the racetrack. Not quite sure what exactly is going to happen, though, whether they're going to go back to green flag immediately or if they're going to wait until everyone gets themselves back sorted into the proper spots.
Yeah, this is something that, like you said, it's really rare that when it happens. So it's not, it's not something that we practice on a daily basis for it to happen. For this to happen is very rare. So when it happens, I know everybody is kind of caught off guard when these type of things happen. So at least having that procedure there on the rule book, and yeah, definitely it's very important. Now at this point, it kind of seems like everything has been sorted out. So race control is going on and off here in the iRacing channel with some instructions for the driver. So I'm gonna keep listening to what's going on, and I'm gonna keep you all updated.
So looking through right now, it's a little hard trying to predict what the exact gaps are because we're under yellow, the gaps have been stretched out. But I can tell you right now that GT3 fight has come down and is essentially going to be very, very tight out there on the racetrack. And it looks like, what it looks to me, are they trying to get I think they are trying to get the gaps as realistic as they can. Either that or Euphoria's Semi-Hack is just sort of leaving a big gap to the C-Specs out in front, just giving proper spacing, which can always be a good thing. But right now, everyone's out there running essentially under, I guess it'd be a code 60 would be the best way to describe it, Alvin, because everyone out there running on the pit lane speed limiter right now, 37 miles an hour, which comes to 60 Ks. So, into the Dunlop chicanes, the entire field is going through and up through and towards the Michael Schumacher S, and it's really hard to try to figure out where everyone is. Sim Racing for Holland, actually, your overall race leaders are pretty deep overall within this pack, so...
Okay, so to give everybody an update, Race Control is trying to sort out the field as they were running in the positions, not necessarily the gaps, because as it stands right now, it kind of seems like the whole race has been neutralized. So the gaps that, for example, Sim Racing for Holland had, it seems like it's gonna be all gone for now. So they are just trying to get this gap, getting it all. The most important thing right now is trying to get the order correctly. That is the most important thing right now. Gaps, I think there is not gonna be an issue because as it stands right now, it kind of seems like race neutralized. So more important right now, getting that order, which is the most important thing right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're not necessarily trying to get the gaps resorted, as it looks like they're getting the field rebunched, Alvin, and I'm not sure if this is going to be a green flag call just yet. Because I don't have my iRacing chat enabled. I'll actually enable that so I can hear. But do you know if we're going to be going green this time by, Alvin, or we're going to spend a couple laps?
It kind of looks like once the leader crosses the start-finish line, we are going back racing.
So we're going to be going back green flag racing here, it certainly seems. And the car that's in front of the field, I'm actually not sure who it is. I know it's a C-Spec, but that is actually Thomas Poprosky in the Ace of Spades Motorsports ref C-Spec. Green flag given by Race Control. The field is bunched up and we're back to green. That was actually very quickly handled by Race Control. I think about a 10 to 15 minute overlap from server issues to red flag to back going into racing conditions. Then Euphoria Racing takes essentially the lead of the entire race kind of at the moment in terms of the pack. And that's really what you want, Alvin, because they're leading their class. They're leading, a lot. They're leading their class. And they're leading essentially the entire field, and because of that...
Sorry, but there's been lots of contact here going into the Mercedes arena, so...
Oh, yes, there is.
Well, everything has been sorted out. All the field has been bunched up, so it's gonna seem like this is going into chaos right now.
So issues that happened, Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack, that was, I believe, your second place car out there on the racetrack. They got into it with the Course Sim Racing machine that they were racing with through the Mercedes arena, and that's actually a relatively interesting incident, depending on how you look at it. But a few incidents here on the restart, Alvin, not quite as clean as we would have wanted.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and while we were having all these battles, and yeah, that Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack, it kind of looks like it got tagged by a C-Spec. Course Sim Racing kind of seems to may have dodge a bullet there, and all this that is happening. So as it stands right now, Course Sim Racing are in second place, and I'm trying to look at exactly what happened to Pure Racing Team, but it kind of looks like Pure Racing Team have lots of time and positions here as well.
I think they may have been one of the victims of the server issue, because Lars Conrad is no longer in that car, Alvin. It's actually Jonas Wohlmeyer who's gotten into that machine, and that's definitely interesting. They've lost a lap. They are dropped down. They're a full lap behind from where they were. So Euphoria Racing Rem Bolsing, as well as Course Sim Racing AMG GT3, those two teams are essentially 1 and 2 right now. What was Simuhack having? There's been 3 wide going into the chicane. Who is this between? We got a rough off into the grass. That's actually Philip Roberts and the Torque Freak Racing Radeon team. So very, very aggressive driving by a lot of different teams and drivers here happening on this opening lap as we go back to green flag.
Yeah, and this is something that we've just been talking about. This is something that really doesn't happen on a daily basis. So this is something kind of new to us. When it happens, we really don't know what to expect.
One, we got a car down in the apex. I think that's a VRN car? It's an SRN car. I got the second 2 letters right, but Marty Jeffries in the SRN Motorsports number 2 car. That's actually the car that his teammate Corey Davis passed on the outside in the grass about 30 minutes ago. So a lot of issues here in the early goings, Alvin. I think a lot of these cars, a lot of these teams, a lot of these drivers simply being over aggressive on this restart.
Yeah, it is now. I'm trying to look at the driver standings right now, and fortunately for Pure Racing Team, they seem like they're still on the lead lap regarding to their class. Now they are 20 seconds behind the leaders, Euphoria Sim Racing Reimbursing, and they really need to get going because right now it kind of seems like, well, everything was going their way. This server incident that just happened, it seems like it threw their strategy kind of off the window. And speaking of strategy, Randy, now we had like 5-10 minutes that we were not racing under green flag conditions, so I will be interested to see what this does for the fuel mileage of these teams and strategies going into this final stop as well.
Well, no one's going to be able to make it to the end, that's for sure. Because, yeah, you may have been able to come down pit road, and even if you managed to fill your car up in the pit lane for some reason, which I don't think is something you should have been able to do.
And they just had, sorry, but Pure Racing Contact just had contact with that black Auto Racing 266 going into the Vito chicane, so seems like Pure Racing team are getting really desperate, so I don't think that is something that you really want to do at this point. Yes, they were involved in that sort of incident, but they kind of seem to be pushing it just a little bit too far now.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, the incident you're talking about, I mean, they are pushing really, really hard, and, you know, in some respects, you can't really blame them, and it is just sort of a... This has not been a very well-handled restart, I think, by the drivers in general, because you figure, think of how clean the start of this race was, Alvin. We saw, really through the first opening laps, no real major incidents come throughout the entirety of the field, but this restart happens and everyone just seems to be going for broke and not wanting to give anyone any room at all. No one's driving with any patience. The 191 and the 177 are in a close fight. That's Backmarker Racing and SimRC Emerald as they go up through the Michael Schumacher S. And, you know, it is just one of those things of a lot of people, I think, are gonna really dislike the fact that a restart happened, but a server issue within sim racing is, in my opinion, the equivalent of a weather issue within real racing. I've seen real races get red flagged due to weather conditions. They come back racing, and the rest of the race is an absolute, it can be a wreck fest. I've seen this exact scenario happen in the real world. I've seen, a random rainstorm hit and people go and they wreck out there on the racetrack. I've seen puddles on Road America in kart where people are trying to drive through at 160 miles an hour plus. This is par for the course for motorsports. This happens in real life, and it happens relatively frequently.
Yeah, and talking about it, and this is pretty much one of the main difference that we have. You have different series, and yes, they have different procedures. Like, for example, you have most of the race series when they have a red flag, and this kind of goes also tied with the restart that we had. They just pretty much kind of neutralize the race, but they don't really let the slower cars get a lap back and getting the classes sorted and as best as possible. This kind of seems like the most important thing was to get everybody back on the race, not really sort out the field like a series like IMSA does, for example, that during a yellow flag procedure, they sort the field per class so that once the restart hits, you don't have these traffic issues that we just saw, and compared to the start of the race, it's pretty much sorted by class, but up in here, everybody was mixing together, so you have this difference in speed, braking points, and all that. Nobody was expecting that, so definitely it was kind of surprising, but with 1 hour 8 minutes to go, it kind of also seems like the pressure is on for most of the teams here as well.
Yeah, the pressure's really on for everyone at this point. Euphoria Racing, Rem Bolsing, they actually got, I think, somewhat lucky in this entire situation, because we would have assumed that gap would have come down, and while they did lose a considerable amount of time, Alvin, Alberto Ray in that leading GT3 car still had a considerable margin over that Core Sim Racing AMG driven by Marcus Blum.
Yeah, it is, but when you consider the advantage that they had just before this red flag happened, it was a little bit over 13 seconds as the 191 and 177 going side by side. Just a little bit of contact there going into the Mercedes arena. Let's see what SimRC.de are able to do, because it kind of seems like they are really racing that hard for that third place. So let's just hope that Race Control just see them and says, you know what, you guys are racing. Everybody is still able to make it, so I'll just let you guys go at it. But going back into that GT3 battle, before the red flag, the gap was more than 10 seconds, and because of that, and things that happen, now it's just less than 6 seconds. So Course Sim Racing definitely one of the benefactors of this red flag. Yeah, you don't want. You try to reduce the advantage from something like this, but at the end of the day, somebody will benefit and somebody won't. That is the nature of racing.
Still monitoring that lead margin between your GT3 class 177 and 191 battle. Seems to have gotten itself somewhat strung out now that Backmarker Racing has gotten themselves ironically up into that third position, given their team name. But Euphoria still doing everything they can to push on and stretch that gap. Right now, Core coming out of that Michael Schumacher rest, and Alberto Ray going into that almost second to final, I guess, section of the racetrack, coming onto the back straightaway. Acme Racing Daytona prototype coming through, and let's take a look in right now the 2.6. Never mind, Black Adder Motorsport. Actually, that's a close fight. There's a reformed Alvin. Course Sim Racing in the Blackadder car within your rough C-Spec division. That's a close fight for the lead right now as well.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely, one of the things that we have with this racer, pretty much, this kind of threw a whole new wrench into this race, and with that, we also have new battles here. And for I'm going through the whole field, and one team that definitely has benefited from all this, from the team that's running in third place right now, Probatum Racing and NAB Racing. They too have benefited, and this is a battle that's going on for third place right now.
Yeah, there's close fights that have kind of popped up all up and down throughout the field right now, and Blackadder and Course Sim Racing continues to be a close fight as they come through the second to final corner and into the final corner here, the Coca-Cola curve, as Dominic Engel doing everything he can to try to reel in that Blackadder Motorsports GOT number 366. As they come down the front straight, and there's a bit of traffic in front of that Blackadder car. That's Tomas Propke. I'm not going to be able to say that name, in the Ace of Spades Motorsports car as they go into corner number 1. Sven Commerce, he needs to get around that car quickly, because I feel like that car is costing him a little bit of time, and going into corner number 2, that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, it is pretty much now all these new battles that we are spotting now here throughout the field, and especially one of the classes that we have been following all day was that C-Spec class. Yes, we know that that was perhaps the closest field that we've had in here today, but this red flag kind of seems like it has pretty much sprung up this really close battles all over the field, from the top of the field here for the lead of the GTC class all the way till the back end.
Yeah, I mean, and really, like you said, Alvin, the strategy for this is really kind of just thrown into a loop, because you have a lot of different situations. You have a situation where Pure Racing Team GT3, because Lars Conrad is one of the drivers who disconnected, they're forced into a situation where their car simply just gets towed, and that car, when it comes down into the pit lane, it's going to take fuel and it's going to take tires. I don't think that's something you can actually control in that scenario. I'm actually not sure. So they might be in a situation where they have fuel and tires, but I would imagine within the rule book, Alvin, that the rules state that in red flag conditions you cannot do any work on the car, which there are some teams that get forced into an awkward situation where they have to. What do you think the penalties that would come down and through would be if that comes place? Obviously, a team like PRT, they didn't benefit off of that, but you can make the argument that if any teams did hit the pit lane, they should certainly be penalized for that.
Yeah, and well, like you said, this is something that really doesn't happen that often. So when it happens, it is something that you really have to go into it on a case by case basis and really look into it. It also kind of brings to mind to me last season at the round in Watkins Glen, we had the incident that the race start was a standing start instead of a rolling start. So race control had to quickly throw a full course yellow to avoid any further incidents from happening. And yeah, there was some shuffling in positions here and there, but this is sometimes these things happen. So trying to get a grip of it and trying to solve it as quick as possible. Yes, some people will benefit, some people will not benefit from it, but trying to keep things under control and make sure that things run smooth. That is the most important thing.
Second place in the prototype division is currently very, very close. That's Backmarker Racing and SimRC DE Emerald. We saw Backmarker Racing get that spot over SimRC and stretch the gap a little bit, but Dustin Hickman over the past few laps has done a good job of reeling that gap back in and be able to get right on the back of that Backmarker Racing machine. Note that Dennis Dona in the Sim Racing for Holland car is actually coming through behind, and he's going to be involved in this fight a little bit, putting these two a lap down here in probably about 5 or 6 laps time. So Dustin Hickman might have an opportunity to use him essentially as a pick in getting around that Backmarker Racing car. But that said, Alvin, these two look very, very closely matched, essentially swapping lap times back and forth.
Yeah, it is. Now, you gonna go through this prototype field and you gonna think, how does the red flag that we just had did affect the field in here? Here's something interesting for you to think about, Randy. Sim Racing for Holland went around 55, 56 minutes under fuel run, so they knew that they were going to have that last splash and dash. Now, with the advantage that they have right now, are you thinking that there may be the possibility that they are trying to save fuel here and there so they can make it on just one more stop without having to come into the pits on the last
the
5
fact
to
they're
10
pitting
minutes?
now probably says no, because I don't think because Sim Racing for Holland hitting the pit lane right now, I don't think there's any way that they can make it to the end, and I think Backmarker and SimRC Emerald are going to be in the same situation.
Yeah, it is now. Sim Racing for Holland coming into the pits, and like we were just talking, Pure Racing team, they just got a stop and hold for that contact with the Blackadder Motorsports.
Oh yeah, there's a Pure Racing team getting a penalty right there, and that's going to be disaster for them. But I'd have to say that's definitely a well-deserved penalty and definitely a well-thought-out penalty. I don't think that that's a bad call by race control on any way. Jonas Wollmeyer kind of just punted that Blackadder car going into that chicane on early on in the restart, and I think that's not going to be the only one we probably see come down, Alvin. We have a warning as well, came in from Mad Cape Racing, two Mad Cape Racing team. And I'm actually surprised we haven't seen a couple other protests get filed over the course of this restart, because there was, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 different incidents we saw happen. However, it is in order for an incident to really get investigated, you have to ensure that you file the protest. And, maybe some teams haven't done it as much, or maybe they thought the incidents weren't quite as neglectful. But only the one penalty coming through, and really with 2 protests getting filed, and only 1 penalty, at least at this point, getting put in with, who was it, Mad Cape getting a warning.
Yeah, it is. And, sometimes when these type of things happens with red flags or full course yellows or code 60s, yeah, it is something that drivers don't really practice much, but it's something that you also have to always keep in mind that it may happen. And at that point, when these type of things happen, that is when the team aspect of endurance racing comes in, because you are on the track, and yes, you are concentrating on that part on the track, but that is the part when having that crew chief, that team manager talking to you about what's happening, what to do, that is what separates most of these teams here from being a winning team and just being a group of guys in one car, pretty much.
Dominic Engel still trying to hound down and catch the back of the Blackadder Motorsports machine, driven by Sven Kamrat, as they go through the Dunlop hairpin right now and make the run up towards the Michael Schumacher S. And actually, Dominic is in a situation, Alvin, where he was about to get an awesome launch out of that corner, but the Blackadder car really put itself in a very good position, was able to essentially force the Core Sim Racing car to lift out of it. Because of that, Dominic Engel still not able to get a move done or even attempt a move, really. This is going to be, I think, a good opportunity for him, though, down the back straightaway. He has no traffic in front, really, and no traffic behind. If he can get a good run out of this corner, and if he can use the slipstream effectively, he might be able to make a move down into the chicane, but I don't think he got the run he needed. It's going to be line astern for now.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of the red flag strategies, we knew that the C-Specs in here, they were perhaps the class that was close to making it into the hour, but they may have needed, just a little some second here and there to make sure that they were gonna be able to make it into a two-stopper. And thanks to this, they really don't have to worry about perhaps doing a splash and dash. That strategy out of the window. Pretty much everybody on the C-Spec on a two-stopper, and with less than 1 hour to go, we are 57 and 20 minutes to go right now into this race. Everybody is now into a two-stopper, so these two definitely battling, making sure that when that last cycle of pit stop comes in, they gotta make sure that they wanna come clean, not miss their stall, and most importantly, don't get a penalty for speeding.
Yeah, you need to be absolutely flawless at this point in the race when it comes to your final pit stop, especially if you're Dominic Engel or Sven Kammertz, or even if you're Euphoria Racing, Rimbolsing, and Core Sim Racing. The gaps are simply too low to really for you to be able to afford a mistake, because everyone can essentially hit the end from here, with the exception maybe of your Daytona prototype classes, the likes of Sim Racing for Holland, Sim RC Emerald, as well as Backmarker Racing. Speaking of, Kyle Burney is in the pit lane for Backmarker Racing, so they're... Actually, do you think they could stretch this to the end, Alvin? Actually, no, I don't think so, because we've seen them only go about, 52, 53 minutes, and there's about... it's going to be tight. It's going to be really tight.
Yeah, I really don't see any team on the prototype class trying to go for and only one more stop. Looking at the stints here, it kind of seems like the latest team to come into the pits was the Backmarker Racing, the 191 with Kyle Burney. They're just coming out of the pits, and it will be really close. I think Kyle Burney, perhaps there's a possibility that they can make it from here until the end, but they really have to. And we're just getting a penalty, and this really can change a lot, because Sim Racing for Holland just got black flag, a stop and hold, 10 seconds for avoidable contact.
Yeah, so this is your overall race leaders. This is on their lap number 62. This is about 2 laps ago. Let's see if we can see what happened. This is when actually Rudy was just getting in the car, and that was his out lap. So Rudy, on his first lap out there on the racetrack, got himself a penalty. Actually, it may not have been Rudy. It could have been, actually no, because it would have been on last. Yes, it was Rudy going into corner number 1. After exiting the pit lane. Who was that on the outside? That was Julian Bell in the Graphite Racing GES car he got into. Lap number 62 for Rudy going into corner number 1 on his pit exit. And he was in the car for 10 seconds, Alvin, and he got the team a black flag. That might cost them the win.
Yeah, it may cost them the win, but when I was looking at the live timing here, I also noticed that they pretty much almost had 1 lap over the whole field. Yes, it kind of seems like the advantage right now, it's only 40 seconds compared to with SimRC.de, but SimRC.de still haven't come for their last stop as well. So this really throws a wrench into the race strategy here, and may not make things really interesting towards the end of this race.
Getting a replay of that incident up on your screen right now as we're trying to monitor where is SimRC.de Emerald in all this. They're currently working themselves down the back straightaway, and Rudy DeWitt not even at his pit lane, at his pit box yet. He's going to be the very, very first pit box on the pit lane. He's in the lane right now. 10-second stop and hold, at which point he will then drive away. He might just get away with this with the lead, Alvin, but his lead is going to be cut a lot thinner than what it has been all race long. Waiting. He's currently rolling now, currently getting up to speed, rolling down the pit exit right now. He's off the limiter, and here comes Dustin Hickman. He's going to be about 2 to 3 seconds behind, just short of taking over the lead, but now the race is on for your overall race win.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Now, something that we also have to take into consideration now that since pretty much this red flag has pretty much the main topic in here for this race, and how this has changed the whole race. Since we are not used to it, something that we are also not used to, we go into the car and we are concerned about the level of force feedback, degrees of rotation, where we program the buttons and all that, but sometimes we forget to program the ignition and starter, and that's another factor here in this race. And I'm pretty sure that since some teams forgot that, I am also sure that race control also had to act quick because these cars can overheat, and the last thing you want is a car overheating, blown engine, and race over as well.
Yeah, that is something that's one of the major reasons that for people who are curious why within endurance racing they come down pit lane and they cut the engines off in the pit lane, and they do that for two reasons. One is a heating concern because the engine's not getting cool air into it all the time, and two is it's just a safety concern. There are some series that don't require that, but some of the series that don't, I've even seen teams just do it anyways. One, either a force of habit, or two, because they don't want to overheat the car. And for those who think that that's somehow undersold or oversold within iRacing, that is actually a very real concern within the real motorsports. That this year, within the 25 hours of Thunderhill, we saw the Wolf, which is one of the prototypes in that division. That car actually overheated on the opening pace lap coming to the green to start the race. And also, if you think back about 10 or so years ago, Alvin, you had Kimi Räikkönen at Monaco. He had an overheating concern under safety car as well, where the car exiting the casino hairpin, the car basically just caught on fire because it wasn't being properly cooled. And also, wasn't there a fire in the pits after an F1 race about 3 years ago?
Yeah, it is, and that also did remind me. I think this race was maybe 10-15 years ago, and this was a NASCAR race in Richmond Raceway. I think it was Gary Nadeau. He was pretty much dominating that race, but the car had one problem. It had so much tape in the front that whenever they threw a caution flag, that car was overheating. So this overheating issue, this is something that we also have to we have to take into consideration. Perhaps it's not much of a problem on these cars once they are moving, but definitely if you are idling and not getting some air into the car, it can really become a big problem.
Right now, Dustin Hickman is trying to use this traffic to his advantage to get around that Sim Racing for Holland machine currently driven by Rudy DeWitt. The gap is 0.3 of a second, which is a slim margin compared with what it has been the entirety of this race as they go now into the chicane at the back end of the track. This very quick left-right, and then into the Coca-Cola curve on the back half of the racetrack. And Dustin Hickman, I think that gap's come down from 0.3 of a second. Alvin, I think it might just be under a tenth. But as they say that, Dustin goes a little bit wide on the corner exit, and as he comes across the stripe, that gap's going to be 2 1/4 tenths. So just 0.2 of a second for the top spot in your prototype. And Dustin looks to the inside on the brakes into corner number 1, very, very deep on the brakes, and moves Sim RC Emerald up into that top spot.
Yeah, it is, but we also have to remember that they are off strategy compared to Sim Racing for Holland. Sim Racing for Holland, pretty much, they're just they came into the pits earlier. So as it stands right now, Sim Racing for Holland, they just have to come into the pits just for a splash and dash, whereas SimRC.de will definitely need to do a full service. However, at any minute that goes by is less fuel that they need to put in. So this race here for the overall win has started to get really interesting now.
As your prototype leaders currently getting themselves around a couple of Mercedes GT3 cars through that Dunlop hairpin, and as they come up into the Michael Schumacher S, and I think Rudy DeWitt going to be somewhat unlucky is where he catches this Mad Cape Racing Mercedes exiting this Michael Schumacher S. That's going to give Dustin Hickman a couple more tenths of a second as they go into the back half here of the lap here at the Nurburgring GT course. Move that Sim RC Emerald car up a few extra tenths of a second, and Dustin Hickman is going to be real happy about that. And I have to ask, Galvin, the situation that Sim Racing for Holland has themselves in, I don't think they can put Dennis Donna back into this car and be able to meet the minimum driving standards. Rudy DeWitt, if that's assuming they have to do another pit stop, because if they have to do another stop, that's something they theoretically could do. However, I think because Dennis drove the first 61 laps of the 67 that have been completed, Rudy has to essentially run the rest of this race, and he has to find some speed.
Yeah, it is, and now pretty much we are getting to a point that, as it stands right now, this is pretty much Rudy DeWitt all the way, because there is no way that they will change. And we also have to consider, since they still have to come into the pits for that last splash of fuel, they cannot change drivers. It's just gonna take way too long, and that definitely will swing the balance back into SimRC.de's favor. So as it stands right now, Rudy DeWitt has to run this race until the end, no questions asked.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Looking at the gap of your GT3 field right now, Marcus Blum has been slowly reeling in the car of Alberto Ray up in front. GTCs have apparently already hit the pit lane, so there should be good to make it to the end here as Jure Pakkanen as well as Joel Hafner continue to fight for the lead in that category. But Core Sim Racing is doing a good job trying to reel in Euphoria. Euphoria hits the pit lane now. So here's the question mark, Alvin. Can Core make it to the end from here based on what's happened? I would say probably not. And if so, when do they hit the pit lane?
Well, looking at it, it seems like they've been 16 laps into it, and the longest we have seen GT3 go in has been 36 laps. And with 47 minutes to go, Randy, the answer is no. They will still have to come in, although for a splash of gas, they really don't have to come in and change tires and all that, but they definitely have to come back into the pits for a little bit of fuel.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think that very many people can make it to the end here. Nab Racing, number 2, awaits in the pit lane. The other Euphoria car stays out. Graphite has gone past the pit lane as well as Pure Racing Team. They're going to cycle across the pit lane, but we still think that they likely got some pit lane service of some sort when they were when the red flag itself actually happened. So they're probably going to come down the pit lane a bit later, but I think they're simply too far back really to make any sort of effort of trying to make anything happen for the win. Monitoring your lead for the prototype class, Dustin Hickman has stretched the gap over Rudy DeWitt in that Sim Racing for Holland car as they're exiting currently the Mercedes arena. You see Rudy dealing with a rough C-Spec on the right-hand side. He's now got a Merc in front of him. And then just up the road is actually Dustin Hickman, who's currently in the middle of that fight for your GTC lead.
Yeah, that absolutely fantastic racing right now. You know, now that we are pretty much we are almost 45 minutes left into this race. Now we are pretty much seeing all the strategy calls being done for most of these teams right now. So now as they come into it and they get out of the pits, is race to the finish, pedal to the metal, don't hold anything back.
And Rudy DeWitt he's really driving that car as hard as he can right now, getting around Joel Hafner, who's your lead GTC car. And I just think Dustin Hickman has the advantage on him, Alvin, unless Dustin Hickman has to hit the pit lane again, which, I think Rudy's going to be tight, and I don't know if Dustin owes us a pit stop or not. This entire sequence with the red flag has kind of jumbled everything in terms of my mind. It's, Rudy really is on an island on his own at this point in terms of being able to get that Sim Racing for Holland car back out in front.
Yeah, it is. And, one of the things that what this red flag has done for us, this has really thrown a whole wrench into this strategy game, something that we have been talking about, because usually, since we don't get this, it's relatively easy, straightforward to do calculations for when it comes to doing race strategy. You start the race, you divide it by the stints, and then you go for it. But when things like this happen, this is really something that can change everything, as the 109 coming into the pits now.
So that's going to be Legends Racing, and that car is currently driven by Adam Parle. That's the car that started at the start of the race with they had a 20-second start. They had a 1-minute stop and hold penalty due to bringing Jamie Wilson in for this event. So they're going to come down, which should be for their final stop, and I think that we should see Adam stay in this car. Yeah, I wouldn't put Jamie back in it either, Adam. He didn't exactly do very good, as I throw some shade at my teammate Alvin. But SimRC Emerald currently trying to stretch the gap all they can over Rudy DeWitt and Sim Racing for Holland. And looking back at that GT3 division, looks to me like Core Sim Racing still owes us a pit stop, as they are way ahead. Is Marcus Blum going to come down this time around? Yes, he will. So that's going to be your GT3 leader coming down in the stops right now. Keep in mind that Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack is actually the car that was leading before they it was the Reem Bolson car, wasn't it, Alvin?
Yeah.
Am I getting my Euphorias mixed up?
Well, I think you are right. It's just that the gap between them was really starting getting closer and closer and closer, and Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack. Well, actually, Simuhack was the second team from the
it'd be Reem Bolson who was leading.
So as it is right now, Euphoria Sim Racing, Reem Bolson were the leaders. So really interesting, since Core Sim Racing will have to take less time here in the pits. Really interesting to see where they come in respective to reimbursing. So this is the race to watch right now for the GT3 race, for the GT3 lead right now.
It certainly is. The Simuhack's going to inherit that lead as Core Sim Racing sits there in the pit lane. And actually, I see that car getting jacked up, Alvin, and I'm not going to lie. You have 40 minutes left in this event, essentially. This final stint has been essentially cut down by 15 or so minutes due to that red flag scenario. If I'm Core Sim Racing and Marcus Blom, I don't think personally I would change the tires. But where is this Euphoria racing car compared to the Core Sim Racing AMG GT3? Euphoria is coming onto the front straight now. Core is still in the box. They're waiting. Hasn't released yet. He releases right now. Euphoria is comfortably going to get by and move them back up a spot. So Euphoria is going to maintain their lead because the two cars in front currently, the Pure Racing Team car as well as the other Euphoria car, still owes a stop.
Yeah, you are right, Randy. However, you also have to consider Core Sim Racing are going to have 40 minutes to go. They have to put less fuel. So in a way, that kind of balances itself. And you put 40 minutes of racing left for Core Sim Racing, that is way less fuel that they need to in comparison to a full stint, and you add to that a fresh set of tires. Definitely Core Sim Racing will be flying now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and something we sort of missed. Hugo talked about it in our chat, but we were focused on GT3 at the time. Sim RC Emerald hit the pit lane. That was your prototype leader at the time. Christoph Weitz gets behind the wheel of that number 177 machine, and that Sim Racing for Holland car, he's going to re-inherit the lead. So really, Alvin, the question on Rudy DeWitt right now is, can he stretch this tank of gas to make it to the end? Right now, if you're Sim Racing for Holland and Rudy DeWitt, you simply have to be saving gas, I think, as hard as you can if you think there's any way you can make it to the end.
Well, I don't think he will be able to save any fuel, and the fact that we have on the timing right now that he is 7 laps into his stint, it has pretty much to do with the fact that he have to serve a stop and hold penalty. So that kind of, in a way, throws our live timing a little bit into a loop. But I do remember that they came into the pits with an hour 5, an hour 7 minutes to go into a race, so they definitely cannot make it towards the end. However, the gap right now it's around 58 seconds, and coming into the pits and getting out should be around 30 seconds, give or take. So saying that they will need say 5-6 laps of fuel, something like that, they should be good to go. They should be good when it comes to retaining the race lead in here. However, they cannot take it easy, because I'm pretty sure SimRC.de, they know that if they want to win, they have to push now.
Currently watching the fight for, I believe this is going to be 7th and 8th out there on the racetrack in your prototype division. This is, 6th and 7th, Apex Racing UK Academy Daytona Prototype, as well as Acme Racing 2. That car driven by Sam Fitzpatrick, the Apex car driven by Ben Gregory. The other two cars, Alvin, they've had a really rough go at this one. Acme has had a penalty or two along the way, as has Benjamin Gregory in that Apex Racing UK Academy DP.
Yeah, it is this battle right now for what is essentially P6 and P7 for Acme Racing and Apex Racing UK. They have been pretty much now been going at it as a result of this red flag. So really interesting how this whole red flag dynamic has kind of mixed the whole field in here, and get some new battles, revive some old battles. But now less than 40 minutes to go. It's all racing. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fight on for everyone. If you're Sim Racing for Holland, you're pushing really, really hard. If you're Rudy DeWitt right now, his laps have been very, very quick. Not quite as quick as Dennis Donna's, but not far off either. He's pushing really, really hard. Looking back at your GTC fight between those two cars, that's still a close battle for the lead as it is. Pure Racing Team currently leads in the GT3 division, but they still owe us a stop. Blackadder and Core, though, that's really the closest fight on the racetrack right now in terms of for the class victory.
Yeah, it is absolutely now. Sim Racing for Holland right now, they got a 1 minute lead over SimRC.de. So it kind of seems like also Sim Racing for Holland got that message that they have to push now if they want to avoid any possibility of coming in close for a battle close to the finish of the race with SimRC.de. So it also kind of goes in hand with the dominating race that Sim Racing for Holland has had today so far. From the drop of the green flag, they have been the car to beat. Yes, they had a penalty that they had to serve, but this don't let that detract us from the amazing race that Sim Racing for Holland has been having in today, because it's just, apart from that, it's been just the perfect race that you can ever dream of.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that that's a really solid argument, Alvin, because especially if you think of Sim Racing for Holland, they absolutely dominated this race last year in this same season. And here they come out and they dominate basically the entire way. Server issues stacked the field back up, and unfortunately Rudy has a bit of an unfortunate incident going into turn 1. Besides those two, unfortunate things for them, was very, very tight. Right now we're watching the 389 and the 378 out there on the racetrack. That's DRS Racing as well as SimRC Cyan. This is in your GTC division, and actually SimRC Diane just got around that DRS machine on this last lap, so move that SimRC machine up into your top 5 near your GTC field.
Yeah, and that was also a beautiful move there by Rene Osterkamp from SimRC.de Cyan. Getting into that kink, it kind of seems like he was going to make a move, but kind of also held by his teammate in the prototype. That kind of opened the door around the outside and going under braking. Kind of seems like Christer the Reader kind of said, you know what, I think going side by side here may not be the best thing, so you were faster than me, take the position right now. Let's see if I can get it back later.
Sometimes for a race like this, Alvin, that's simply what you have to do. A lot of people would be surprised how many teams, how many drivers who get themselves to the front in these sorts of races know when to lift out of the gas. Because, think of a team like Coanda. Coanda Sports, a team that we saw pretty much run away with that Blancpain GT championship last year. One of the most consistent teams, one of the most creative teams in terms of the strategy. And they didn't do it necessarily on speed. They didn't win every single race outright. But they knew when they needed to be aggressive, and they knew when they didn't need to be aggressive. And because of that, they were consistently making it to the end of the races. And even when they had races like they had at Brands Hatch, where they got spun around a couple times, they knew how to recover and come away and get strong points. Whereas a lot of other teams who may have been quicker, they weren't necessarily as creative, and they didn't know quite as well how to make a good thing out of a bad day.
Yeah, it is. That is one of the interesting things of racing, especially with endurance racing. Yes, we're not saying that VRS Coanda are slow by any means, because when you look at their track record, I don't think they are one of the slowest teams here in iRacing. They are absolutely one of the best teams here in iRacing, whether it's the Grand Prix Series, whether it's Endurance Series in Neo or Blancpain. They are absolutely one of the best. But it also comes to, sometimes there are days that you are not the fastest, but what you may lack in speed one day, you may gain with strategy. And that is something that we see on endurance racing every single day. Sometimes you just get on the track and you're just not the fastest. So sometimes you have to go back and say, you know what, we may not be the fastest, but let's see with the strategy that we got in here. Is there some flexibility here? Is there a window that perhaps we can try something here? Roll the dice and go for no tires. Only change one tire. Sometimes something that we also saw last season. Those things are the things that do make a difference, especially on a championship winning team. That is something that you also have to take and have under your sleeve.
Actually, we missed something as our producer was telling us to watch between the battle between the 223 and the 208. This involved your lead, one of the cars in your lead battle for your GTC field. Yuri Pakkinen in the Core Sim Racing C-Spec on his 67th lap going into that chicane. He had a Daytona, actually I take that back, it was a Mercedes come up his inside, and a little bit of, actually no, I take that back, that Core Sim Racing car just simply lost the back end on its own. That cost him several seconds. That's going to give Blackadder a very comfortable lead here, coming quickly up on the last 30 minutes of this event.
Yeah, and now that we are closing, that we are getting towards the end of this race, now this is the part that we are seeing that aggressive part, that mental fatigue, those teams that are really not used to it. And this is something that, it's really interesting, something to see towards the end of this race. Some teams, they can do one stint no problem, but sometimes some drivers trying to do a double stint sometimes is asking a little bit too much. And that mental fatigue, that is really when it starts playing a huge factor, especially towards the end of a race like this one.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. These, a lot of people would be, a lot of people can do a double stint, pretty easy. There's a lot of drivers out there, Alvin, that can really double, triple stint relatively easy. Some people really can't, and some cars are easier than others. Like, I would argue this Merc, in terms of being able to drive it for the entirety of the stint, is probably the easiest of the cars in this entire championship. This roof in the Daytona prototype, I think the roof is probably arguably a little bit harder because the way the roof drives, you really have to be a lot more careful with it in terms of monitoring the tires. You can't push the car as hard. You have to be, relatively calm with your blips. You don't want to roast your rear tires, which is something you can actually do if you over blip the car on the downshift. So you can essentially cause the rear tires to over rotate, and you can actually eat up your rear tires pretty easily. You got to be careful on the brakes not locking up. That C-Spec is a hard car to drive over the course of multiple stints.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, Randy, you and I are glad that we are doing it here from the commentary booth today and not down there, because it seems really hard today, especially with all the action that C-Spec has been having in today. Definitely, it's a good thing that we are doing it here from the commentary booth.
Right now, watching a fight between Euphoria Racing Simuhack as well as NAB Racing number 208. This is actually for your final spot in your top 5 in your GT3 field. NAB Racing currently has a 1 to 2 second disadvantage that they need to try to reel in somehow. That's Fabian De Jong in that number 208 machine with the Euphoria Racing Simuhack car driven by Daniel Campos. Last time around, they essentially drove identical lap times. 2/10 went the way of the 223 machine of Daniel Campos. So looking like that NAB Racing car not quite having the pace to reel him in. But that said, that NAB Racing car, Alvin, looks very quick down that back straight, reeling in that Euphoria car by at least 1 to 2 car lengths.
Yeah, it is definitely that NAB Racing, I think, after this red flag has definitely benefited from all this and has gotten like a second breath of fresh air, and now going into this battle with Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack there for 5th place. And we just got news that Blackadder Motorsports, it kind of looks like they got a stop and hold penalty.
That's not good at all. Which Blackadder car actually is that? That's a 266. Oh, it's not the Blackadder. That's not going to impact the race greatly. Nothing against that 266 machine, but really the Blackadder car we're interested in, Alvin, is that 366 that's leading in the GTC field at the moment.
Yeah, it is, but I'm pretty sure that Blackadder Motorsports 266 perhaps it has had better days than today. But looking down into that battle for that C-Spec lead, the 366 with Joel Hafner, I'm pretty sure they are having a great day in here today. Although the gap right now is only 3.1 seconds compared to Corsim Racing, with just less than 30 minutes to go. I'm pretty sure that at one point Jere Pakkonen is gonna get the message that it's time to go now, otherwise we may lose this race.
Well, I'm pretty sure he would have already gotten that message, because there's really, I think, no way for him to be able to reel that gap back in without pushing hard. They should be able to make it to the end from here. So really, it's just pedal to the metal at this point and make it to the end. Keeping track with some of the other fights out there. We're still waiting for Pure Racing Team to come and enter the pit lane and really give the lead back to that Euphoria Racing Rembolsing car. The Core Sim Racing machine of Marcus Blom, he's a little bit out of it in terms of being able to reel in that 222 machine. He's going to have to push really, really hard if he has any hope of winning this race. Currently out there on the racetrack, it looks to be about an 8 to 9 second disadvantage for that Core Sim Racing car. And of course, in your DP field, we're waiting to see when Rudy DeWitt in that Sim Racing for Holland car comes down on the pit lane, because he's been putting in some quick laps, Alvin. But the question is, where are they going to come out in regards to Christoph Weitz? Is right now the 223 and the 228 battle. That's Euphoria and Nav. That's very, very tight. And actually, Fabian De Jong has done a great job over the past couple laps, Alvin, to reel that gap in.
Yeah, absolutely great racing there with NAB Racing Jet starting to close that gap. It kind of seems like they are not intimidated by what Euphoria Sim Racing Simon Haga with Daniel Campos has been doing. Yeah, we have to remember that Euphoria Sim Racing has been pretty much at the top of the field and here today. So for NAB Racing and Fabian De Jong to be able to battle this hard for, even though it's 5th place, I'm pretty sure that is a confidence booster that NAB Racing has been having today, because one of the teams that we thought that we're gonna have a good season here was NAB Racing, but you know, sometimes things happen with incidents that you may not want to be involved, but sometimes you are at the wrong place at the wrong time. But pretty sure NAB Racing today having a good race in here today.
So Fabian De Jong continuing to try to reel in that Euphoria Racing Simu hack machine. And actually that gap is stretched back out over the course of this lap. Still waiting to see what happens with Sim Racing for Holland. It's really a big question mark there, Alvin, because we really don't know what's going to happen until we get to the closing laps, because he's going to be Rudy DeWitt in that number 151. He's going to be very close to being able to make it to the end. And for that reason, we're not going to know probably until the play clock hits down to about 10 minutes left in the race, I would wager. If he's going to have to pit, it really is going to be in the closing 3, 4, 5 laps or so.
Yeah, you are right there, Randy. However, we also have to remember, after this whole cycle of pit stops was over and Sim Racing for Holland also serving their penalty, the gap was 55 seconds, okay? And as it stands right now, it's almost 1 minute 10 seconds. So Sim Racing for Holland are also doing the part that they need to do, which is open the gap just a bit more. Perhaps they don't need it, but it's better to be safe than sorry under these circumstances. And you know, they just got a penalty, true, but who's to say that something happens, you push it a little bit too further and you get a second penalty?
Actually, Alvin, that's actually an interesting point. Do you think with that penalty, do you think that may have helped Rudy DeWitt's gas mileage? Because that would have been roughly about a minute or so he would have spent driving down the pit lane, and then that he would have spent in his box, when normally he'd be out burning that fuel, being hard on the throttle. Do you think that may have in some ways, you know, as twisted as it might sound, do you think that actually may have helped the fuel economy of that Sim Racing for Holland machine?
Well, you know, at this point in the race,
well, the answer is no, because he's hitting the pits right now.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they knew that they were not gonna make it towards the end of the race. So, you know, might as well get that out of the way now, get the service done, and see where they slot. But like I was saying, with a minute 10-second lead that they had, they should be pretty much comfortable. I am sure that they will come ahead of SimRC.de, barring something major happening, missing their stall or getting a penalty. You never know, but it kind of seems like they should be comfortable. So let's see where they come out.
And this should be fuel only for these guys, Alvin, because we're only talking about 25 minutes left in this race, and indeed that's the case. Rudy DeWitt rolls away, and SimRC DE Emerald and Christoph Weitz, they haven't even hit the back straightaway yet. So I keep mixing them up, Alvin, and it's all your fault. But Sim Racing for Holland re-inherits their large lead, and with about 20 minutes left, that's exactly you want to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what Sim Racing for Holland needs to do right now, they know that they got this race in the back. It's just a matter now of, you know, patience, timing your passes, making sure you're not involved in somebody else's incident, and they will have this win. So just patience. That's all they need to do right now.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy really has all the time in the world to deal with traffic. It's a 1.5-second advantage after the pit stop now that Christoph Weitz has cycled across. Actually, no, it's going to be a little bit less than that, but still, I mean, Rudy DeWitt's going through the Dunlop hairpin now and getting ready to make the run up toward the Michael Schumacher S, whereas Christoph Weitz is going through the Merck Arena. He has half a lap of a gap, and he has 25 minutes or so to be able to hold on to that. That should be easy peasy for Sim Racing for Holland. Looking back down to your GTC battle, core has not really been able to reel that gap in that got stretched back out after Jori Pakkinen had that little oversteer moment about 20 to 30 minutes ago. So because of that, that gap still remains at probably about, what, 7 to 8 seconds out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, and you know, as we go back throughout the rest of the field right now. Now here's something interesting. GT3. I have right now that Pure Racing team, even though with all the things that had happened with them, perhaps being the one of the unlucky ones from this server disconnection, they are running in the lead right now. So, Randy, do you think that they have enough fuel to make it towards the end of the race now?
Well, what was the max we saw anyone go? Was it 38 laps? 37?
36, so that was like an hour...
Yeah, 36.
10 minutes? Something like that?
So, well, I'm just looking. Jonas Wallmeyer got into that car on lap number 48. So in order to go 37, 36 laps, you're talking about lap number 84. He's only 7 laps out of that. And how much time is actually left in the event? I think he's going to have to at least hit the pit road for a splash and dash. I don't think he's going to actually be able to make it to the end. It is going to be very, very close, though, as we're quickly approaching. I believe we have about, 22, 23 minutes remaining at this time.
Yeah, so as it stands right now, yeah, it could be really close, but yeah, we also have to remember that they also had a stop and hold penalty, so that kind of throws everything just a little bit kind of into the mix. So, but
isn't that the other pure car? Wasn't that the C-Spec that got penalized?
No, it was the GT3. We gotta remember that they had an.
You're right.
They do had an incident with the 266 going into the Vito chicane.
Yeah, that was in the restart craziness.
Yeah, so that kind of throws things just a little bit under, but you know they are on the lead right now, so they may have to hit the pits again. True, but who is to say that they may have to save just a little bit of fuel here and there, and that splash of that with a little splash of fuel, perhaps coming into second place, just in between Euphoria Sim Racing and Core Sim Racing.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. Jonas Wallmeyer, he's going to have to do everything he can to save gas, and it would be an interesting, start of the year for Pure Racing Team, Alvin, because we had an incident in the VLN series at one point where Max Benecke ran into the back of a Kia, and he actually essentially won the race because of it, because he is with his getting a quick repair, and when he actually pit, he kind of struck into an odd window that gave him a huge advantage. It would be really odd to see Pure Racing Team have the same thing happen based on Lars Conrad being disconnected with them having the fuel to make it to the end.
Yeah, and that is something that is not really new here, not only in real life but also in
they're
racing.
pitting, so I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, they are pitting right now, but we knew that they had to come into the pits. Now the question is how much fuel they need to put into the car to make it towards the end of the race. So let's keep an eye on them.
Probably only going to be, I think, about a 10 or so gallon fill. It depends really how empty the car is, Alvin, and I have to say, based on the fact that they likely would have came in around lap, really it depends if they filled the car up on lap 48, because if they didn't, actually no, I'm going to wager that they probably did not, because Lars got in the car on lap 37. This is lap number 38. So that's about 30. That's
and
on
I'm
the
also
higher
surprised
end
that they are changing drivers as well. Well, not
minimum
surprised
driver
because
time.
Yeah, they definitely had to come into the pit. So I'm pretty sure with the driver swap, definitely that's gonna take a little bit more time. So definitely not going for the win here today.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. Where is Euphoria actually right now? They're currently exiting the Mercedes arena, so it's going to be a large gap for your Pure Racing Team. Core Sim Racing is through as well. Pro bottom, that's Julio Hornelius. He's through as well. Euphoria Racing Simuhack might just go through as well. Yes, Hugo, we were already discussing that. So yeah, they're doing the driver swap due to minimum driver times. And Lars Conrad, he's going to come back out in 5th, 6th. And yeah, looks like going to be 6th spot out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, so pretty much now in 6th place. So definitely we have to say that the combination of the red flag and also the penalty that they got, for trying to make all those positions, that definitely kind of threw away what was looking to be so far a perfect season for pure racing team here in the GT3 class, because the previous 3 rounds they won them all. So we're kind of looking at they were going for a 4th straight win, but as it looks right now, the answer is no.
They've pretty much been taken out of contention to come away with a win here today, and really, I think if you're pure racing team, you need to come away with this with your head held high, Alvin, because even though that they got taken out of the win, it really wasn't anything that they did that took them out of it. I mean, Lars was just one of the unfortunate ones that got DC'd when the server issues happened, and Jornes had to go back into the car, and they essentially had to do an additional full stop compared to everyone else. Most of their GT3 competition, if you know, they did a relatively short stop just because of the fact that they were able to save gas in the red flag period. Because they had to do that driver swap, they essentially didn't get that benefit of having a short splash and go. Note that we're watching currently the battle between the 158 and the 109. That's Samba Racing Team and Legends Racing Team, and these are two teams, Alvin, that have had a very up and down race today. Legends, like we said, started with a 1-minute stop and hold due to bringing in a new driver in using not the proper procedure, but they just wanted to race, so they got themselves out there. Samba Racing Team has been involved in a couple incidents and have had a penalty over the course of this race as well. Currently running for 8th and 9th on the racetrack. That is for second to last and last effectively out there in this race. And actually, Legends goes to the left, Samba turns to the right, and Adam Parle in that Legends racing machine moves himself up into the top 8.
Yeah, it is. Now, going back to the pure racing team and the minimum maximum driver time issue. Sometimes when these things happen, that you know that there may be a disconnection coming up soon, sometimes the first thing that comes to your mind is, I have a problem from my end. So sometimes as a team, you just want to cover your bases and put the driver that you know that is having no problems with any connection issues. Now, it turned out that it wasn't from the driver, it was more server wide. So then you are into the car, and now you are faced with the dilemma. Okay, so I'm in the car, I'm gonna exceed the driver maximum. What am I gonna do? That is really something that in sim racing, it can throw your whole strategy off. And sometimes things happen, nothing we can do about it. You try to make the best with what you have, but you kind of pretty much go with previous experience. And sometimes from previous experience, you kind of see that it's more from a driver end more than a server-wide issue. So you go with what has happened before, and then you discover that it wasn't from your end, it was from our end. Then that's when things start getting really interesting, and you start redoing your strategy, see how you can make the best out of it.
15 minutes remaining in this event as Rudy DeWitt of Sim Racing for Holland goes into corner number 1. Right now looking at the fight between the 223 and the 208. That's again Euphoria Racing, Simihack, and NAB Racing, and that is a fight that's got itself relatively stretched back out. Alvin, this is one that we've seen. It'll get tight, and then it'll stretch out, and then it'll get tight again. And currently, it looks like that Euphoria Racing Simuhack is on the quicker end of this stint. However, Fabian was a little bit quicker than Daniel Campos out in front, but he's not really making enough gains to really be able to consistently reel in that Euphoria Racing number 223.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Now, we are pretty much keeping an eye right now on Euphoria Racing Simuhack and NAB Racing, but Randy, look who's just right behind them.
Yeah, that is that pure racing team GT3 car, and Lars Conrad he's going to be chomping at the bit, because really he started to hit his stride, Alvin, within his first attempt at a stint. He really started to hit his stride right around the time that server disconnect happened. So he really didn't get his chance to shine out there. When we noted that he started off a little bit rough, like we said, it could have been the car setup just not working in the early runnings, and it could have been just Lars being a little bit cold getting into the car. Now he's coming in and he has 2 spots for position. He can move this pure racing team GT3 car out from finishing outside the top 5 this season for the first time to finishing at least within the top 4 and coming away with this for some good points, because even though they won the first 3 races on the trot, Alvin, all the points always matter all the time.
Yeah, it certainly does, especially on a championship like this, that anything really can happen. And with just one more round to go after this one, that we're going to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, it's really a favorite for everybody. But we also know that the high nature of that track really throws some really interesting things that could happen during the race. And as we were seeing, the NAB Racing just got held just a little bit by that C-Spec going into the Schumacher is definitely the last thing that you want, and that definitely has benefited Pure Racing Team and Lars Conrad closing the gap just a little bit. So give it a lap or two, and we may have a battle for 5th place in our hands.
Looking at the lap times last time around, you're absolutely right. Lars Conrad is flying out there compared to the cars he's racing around. It was a 54 flat for Lars Conrad, a 54.6 for Fabian de Jong, and a 54.2 for Daniel Campos. Lars is actually one of the quickest cars out there on the racetrack, and actually the only car that was quicker than him was the Euphoria Racing Rem Bolsing car, which currently leads. So very, very quick out there on the racetrack right now is Lars Conrad, and he wants those spots, and he wants them bad as we're quickly approaching the 10-minute to go mark.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Lars Conrad pretty much has the message right now that with only 12 minutes to go, well, you have to push. You have to get that position. You get 5th place. At least they have salvaged what could have been a really disastrous race, given with all the things that had happened. Getting that 5th place should be kind of like something like damage control. However, if they can get that 4th place, I'm pretty sure it will be even better.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. As they're coming up on a slew of traffic right now, Euphoria and NAB Racing currently getting themselves around that Blackadder Mercedes GT3, and just up in front, which roof is that? That is indeed, it's the Blackadder roof as well. So 2 Blackadder cars currently in the way of this. Well, I won't say in the way, that makes it ruder than it actually is, but in the middle, we'll say, of this fight for the final 3 positions in your top 6 in GT3. They get around the Merc pretty cleanly, and oh, that Euphoria car slipped by that Blackadder roof very beautifully. Alvin and Nab dives down to the inside, and Pure Racing and Lars Conrad tries to follow through.
Yeah, definitely. When you are talking about traffic, it's all about timing. Sometimes you time it just at the right moment that you can do that overtake, and sometimes timing is not on your side, and good luck, bad luck, and NAB Racing just getting close there to Euphoria Team Racing Simuhack. So now everybody's close. Seems like traffic, they were able to manage it perfectly, but there's another C-Spec ahead there, and with the SRN Motorsports, it kind of, Carl Modic in the number 380 C-Spec, it kind of seems like they will have to go around him, and from the looks of it, going to turn 6 and 7, just the spot that if you are Daniel Campos, it's a spot that you really don't want to catch that C-Spec.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's where he's going to catch him. Alvin is going to be on the corner exit as well. He probably would have had to hesitate on the throttle just a little bit there, and that's going to cost him a bit of time as they go down into the Dunlop hairpin. Lars dives down to the inside of that SRN Motorsports number 380, driven by Carl Modig, and you now have 3 Mercedes all line astern, and they go running up into the Michael Schumacher S, all for position. And at this point, Alvin, it's all about positioning. It's all about setting up this pass, and really it's just all about flat-out speed to a certain extent. I give the advantage right now, actually, in this to Lars Conrad. You know that he wants to get himself a good finish out of this event for his Pure Racing Team after the misfortune that they had. And Lars is looking like the quicker of the 3 as they head down onto this back straight.
Yeah, you are right in one point that if there is the fastest driver right now is Lars Conrad. However, as we have seen in many races, it is one thing to close the gap, and it is a whole nother thing to overtake. And he not only has to overtake 1 car, he has to overtake 2 cars. So it will be really a hard thing to do, especially with almost 9 minutes ago. Now we are under 9 minutes ago. Overtake these 2 cars, and you know that Daniel Campos and Fabian de Jong, they are not gonna give Lars Conrad any single inch. They're not gonna make it easy for him. If he wants that 4th place, he will have to fight for it.
Yeah, and he's fighting really, really hard. Right now he looks to the inside, going into corner number 3 in the Mercedes Arena, and Fabian de Jong, he defends beautifully there, honestly, as they come now through corner number 4, making the run through the little short right-hand kink and then up towards corners number 6 and 7 here at the Nurburgring GP course. Where will Lars Conrad make his move, Alvin? Because unfortunately for him, Fabian de Jong has the draft of Daniel Campos out in front, so because of that, he really probably isn't going to be able to to just use the draft to his advantage, I think he's going to have to use one of these either slower cars or a quicker car, such as the SimRC Daytona prototype that's coming through as a pick. But unfortunately, in this instance, it worked against him. But as they go up into the Michael Schumacher-esque, that Daytona prototype is not going to get let through by NAB Racing. And that's one of those times, Alvin, that I'll actually say NAB knew that they had to be aggressive there. They can't afford to lose the time. They didn't want to let that DP slip through, and because of that, they essentially blocked the road. But going through the second half of the track here into corners number 11 and 12, that Daytona prototype does slip through, and Lars Conrad is knocking at the back door.
Yeah, and when you also consider the level of downforce that not only the GP3 but the prototypes also produce, it is really hard to do an overtake. So SimRC.de knew that because of downforce, they really couldn't push the issue a little bit further. If it was a C-Spec, I'm 100% sure that it would have been a totally different story. Now, how you manage it,
Lars got a black flag.
Yeah,
sorry to cut in.
Lars Conrad just cut the chicane and got a black flag, so not what they were looking for, so now they have more work to do.
Yeah, luckily for him, he seemed to have not lose too much time with that incident. But as I say that Acme Daytona prototype costing him a little bit of time, but that Acme car is still racing. Actually, no, I take that back. He's not racing with Kyle Burney anymore, but Lars Conrad is actually trying to outbrake a Daytona prototype into turn 3 on the Merc Arena, and that's really Lars has to do this because he's in a situation where he can't afford to be checked up by a slower Daytona prototype, and that's unfortunately what happens. This entire half of a lap, Alvin, has not gone to Lars Conrad and the Pure Racing team's way. That 1 or so second advantage, probably less than that to be honest, looks like it gets stretched out to 3 to 4 seconds within half a lap here at the Nurburgring.
Yeah, Lars Conrad definitely, this kind of looks like what could have been a good race here for Pure Racing team. It's really starting to unravel, so it kind of looks more like damage control for Pure Racing team. So, one of those things that happen. So now it's just a matter of, with only 6 minutes to go, I don't think they may be able to go for that 5th and 4th place. So now it's just a matter of keeping the car on track, keeping it clean, making it home, and there's still 1 round to go. You will still have the points lead, so it's just one of those that you just make it into the finish line, talk about it, and get ready for the next race.
They might have an opportunity just yet to reel them in because there are a couple Daytona prototypes coming through Euphoria and NAB Racing as those two teams go into the chicane. NAB Racing pretty cleanly able to get themselves through. Acme is apparently pushing because Legends Racing has been catching them by 2 seconds per lap. That's why Acme's trying not to lose as much time as they can. But did Pure Racing team make up any gains through the chicane there? I would say no, because they got checked up behind one of the C-Specs. They're definitely closer, Alvin. Maybe just not quite close enough, but also we talk about Adam Parle in that Legends Racing machine that's been reeling in that Acme car. That's that blue prototype that just went in front of that Pure Racing team car. So you have 2 or 3 different fights between classes all happening here at the same point in the racetrack, and no one wants to wait for anybody.
Yeah, and this is one of the beauties of multi-class racing. You have faster cars, you have slower cars, and then when you combine those clusters of cars, you combine them into their own battles. That's where things start really getting really interesting, especially if you're the slower car. You got faster cars coming in that they're also battling for position, but you also have your own battle. So it's just a matter of who wants to get in first, who has the most respect, who wants to get really into it. And Pure Racing team really close now to the 208 NAB Racing team, and now closing into that 4th place with Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack. So this battle for 4th place and that battle in the prototype class, this is starting to really heat up, and we're just 4 minutes to go. NAB Racing trying to go through the outside, and then whoa, this is and. Well,
and Pure gets spun around.
They just spin, and let's see what they can do. Well, it kind of looks like what Pure Racing was not looking into. They kind of looks like they just had a chance. They looked into it, and they just spun and got hit here, got hit on the left, hit on the right. That it's really heartbreaking. That's the only thing I have to say.
Yeah, it really is, and you know that the Pure Racing team guys are likely going to be somewhat upset about that as we get in the replay on your screen about that as Lars Conrad cycling through the Coca-Cola curve here. And actually that car looks to me like it's relatively hurt from that contact, because while it wasn't a hard hit, Alvin, it actually came in the part of the car that you really never want to have contact, and that's in the rear end near the tire. It wouldn't be out of the question if that car has some bent suspension, so we're going to have to keep an eye on Lars Conrad and if he can keep running here. But Nab and Euphoria, they've gotten themselves somewhat spread out. There was also that three-way scrap between the Daytona prototypes, and that was Acme, Legends, and Samba actually wasn't too far off that, but they got held up in that little scrap as well. Legends continuing to try to reel in Acme Racing 2, who you can actually see is just up the road as they go down towards Dunlop. This white and purple car, that's not the car that Legends is trying to get by. That's another car out there on the racetrack. That's actually Kyle Burney in the backmarker racing machine. But Kyle realizes that those two are racing for position, and he just lets Adam Parle go. And Adam's pushing really, really hard last time by as a full second a lap he took out of that Acme car as they come up quickly on, I believe, 2, maybe 3 laps to go.
Yeah, now pretty much as we are closing towards the end of the race right now, well, you know, there's many battles here to still keep an eye on, but as I go right now, there should be only 2 laps to go as Sim Racing for Holland now going through the Ford curve right now. So once they come back to the start finish line, it should be 1 lap to go.
Adam Parle comes out of the final corner of the Coca-Cola curve, and he's going to swing to the right of the Pro Bottom Racing machine driven by Julio Ornelas going down the front straightaway. And as I say that, the Acme car is the same thing, getting around Scott McGarvey in that SRN C-Spec. Adam Parle is going to get checked up a little bit by that rough C-Spec as they go into corner number 1, but how quickly can he get the move done and get around? He's getting held up through corner number 2, Alvin, which is exactly what he doesn't need. Where is Sim Racing for Holland in all of this? They're just coming out on the back straight with a lap and a half left to go in this event. Legends Racing trying to push as hard as they can to reel in that Acme Racing 2 machine.
Yeah, it is absolutely. This is the racing that you really want to see. You know, just because it's not the battle for the lead, that doesn't mean it's not something that you really want to push. And in a championship like this, every position matters. You want to get every single point that you can, because at the end of the day, you never know if that point can be the difference between making it or not making it.
White flag is in the air as Rudy DeWitt goes down into corner number 1 for the final time. Adam Parle currently running through the Michael Schumacher S. He has a lap and a half to try to catch and get by that Acme Racing 2 machine as he goes into corners number 11 and 12. He's as close as he's been. There's a rough C-Spec spinning off to the left-hand side. That's Scott Brazier and the Team Bushfink Racing Blue machine. He spun all on his own, but we'll keep an eye on this battle between Legends and Acme Racing 2. Down the back straightaway, Adam's not quite close enough for the draft just yet. Hard on the brakes into the chicane for the second to final time for them. They note that they still have not taken the white flag. The fight between the 191 and the 101 for third is also very tight. This is Backmarker Racing and Thrustmaster Movano, and actually Backmarker comes into the pit lane. So Kyle Burney can't make it to the end and possibly has a black flag or a meatball. So he's going to essentially get taken out of that fight. Thrustmaster Movano is going to move into third as they take the white flag. Looking back at Legends and Acme. Going into corner number 1, Adam Parle is as close as he's been for essentially the complete second half of this stint here through corner number 2 of the Merck Arena. Rudy DeWitt and Sim Racing for Holland, though, getting ready to come onto this back straightaway for the final time. As Adam Parle looking to get a run out of corner number 4 to try to close the gap. The Acme car runs over the grass as they make the run down into corners number 6 and 7. However, we look to the leader. We look to Sim Racing for Holland in the number 151 machine driven by Rudy DeWitt as they go into the Coca-Cola curve for the final time. And for 2 years running, Rudy DeWitt and Sim Racing for Holland will win the Gathering of Tweakers endurance race at the Nurburgring GP course. Looking back to Legends, and Adam Parle is there, and he clips the right rear corner of that Acme Racing machine and gives them a little half spin, but they get knocked back, going back the right way. That's going to be an interesting incident for the stewards to review, because Sam Fitzpatrick was off the pace on the inside trying to block that Legends Racing machine of Adam Parle. But it is a bit of an interesting incident. The 222 machine of Euphoria will come across the stripe and will win your GT3 division here in your Gathering of Tweakers 3 hours at the Nurburgring. Where is Blackadder? They still have about half a lap to go, Alvin. Is Legends going to be able to hold on to this spot, or what do you think the stewards are going to say about that incident? Actually, I take that back. Acme looks to the inside aggressively, and they're actually going to spin Legends as they go into the chicane. Sam Fitzpatrick very, very deep on the brakes there. The stewards are going to have fun with that one.
I'm pretty sure that this will not be the final finishing position for these two. I'm pretty sure race control, this is one of the last things that you want, but they happen. I'm pretty sure this will be investigated post-race. Now, coming into the start-finish line, the 223 of Euphoria Sim Racing Simuhack coming in, crosses the line in 4th place. That battle that they had with NIB Racing and with Pure Racing Team. So that battle seems like it's all over. But now we focus on the 366. They're coming through the Beetle chicane and coming to take the race win here as they come into the last curve. And the Blackadder Motorsports, that 366, another fantastic race for them as they come and cross the finish line and win the 3 hours of Nurburgring here for the Gathering of Tweakers Endurance Series.
Yeah, and what a run for those Blackadder guys. That's 2 wins in a row for them. So congratulations to that Blackadder Motorsports number 366. And I think for the most part, that's just about everyone having crossed the finish line. Rudy DeWitt's still out there actually on the racetrack. So he's coming around here to the start-finish line, as well as Jurgen Frank. So that's going to be it for the entirety of your field, as we'll go and we'll run down your race results, your unofficial race results after what happened on that last lap of your Gathering of Tweakers 3 hours of the Nürburgring. Sim Racing for Holland, what an eventful race it was for them. They take pole in class by 7/10 of a second as I accidentally punched my microphone. I'm sure that sounded fantastic on the stream. They come away with pole by 7/10 of a second. They get a little bit of drama with a penalty, but they still come away with a 48-second victory over Sim RC Emerald. Thrustmaster Movano comes home in 3rd, Backmarker in 4th, MP Prototype in 5th, Apex in 6th, Acme 7th, Legends and Samba Racing in 7th, 8th, and 9th. Acme and Legends could get swapped around any number of ways depending on how you look at those post-race incidents. Euphoria Racing Rembolsing, what a run for them. They come away with the win in your GT3 division with Core Sim Racing in 2nd. Probatum Racing comes home in 3rd, a very strong run from Julio Hornelius as well as Jose Almeida. Euphoria Racing Simuhack in 4th. NAB Racing 5th. Pure Racing Team GT3 in 6th. A heartbreaker for them with the technical issues. Western Pennsylvania iRacing Yellow in 6th. Graphite Racing 7th. Restart Racing in 8th. Blackadder 9th. Madcape Racing Team in 10th. WR Racing GOT in 11th. NAB Racing 12th with 4X Racing Fury in 13th. Blackadder Motorsport GOT, they make it 2 in a row with their win here at the Nürburgring. Core Sim Racing comes home in 2nd in that division with Sim RC Magenta in 3rd, SRN in 4th, Sim RC Cyan in 5th, DRS Racing 6th, Torque Freak Racing Radion in 7th, Ace of Spades Motorsports 8th, SRN Motorsports number 2 in 9th, Team Bushfink Racing Blue in 10th, and in 11th, Pure Racing Team GTC. And that's for you to decide, Hugo. We going to go to commercial first or straight into the interviews? So we're going to hop over straight into the interviews then, and let's see, who do we have available at the moment? It's just Kyle Burney, but let's see if we can get and talk to some of our race winners first for when they come up to the channel. But Alvin, what a race this was here at the Nürburgring. That one was pretty exciting and had pretty much everything you could talk of in a race. We'll just talk to Kyle then, as apparently Hugo don't want me and Alvin to discuss things together. So we're joined in the channel by Kyle Burney, part of Backmarker Racing Team. And Kyle, what a run it was for you guys. Started 3rd, managed to come away with a strong 4th place finish. What's your take on this race, and what's your takeaway given everything that happened?
It wasn't the best race that we had. We would have liked to finish 3rd. It definitely isn't what we needed for the championship, since we're 1 point behind we were 1 point behind Thrustmasters, 2 behind SimRC coming into this race. So the caution, a red flag, and all that other stuff kind of messed with us with our strategy. So I had the pace if I was on same tires and fuel as SimRC at the end of the race, but I didn't have to do it, and I had to save a little bit of fuel. And then unfortunately, with about 3 to 4 laps to go, we got rear-ended going into turn 1 and had that lovely meatball glitch bug with the C7 and had to pit on the last lap to avoid getting DQ'd to clear it. And as soon as I came in, it was gone, and I just left. But we lost 3rd spot and because of that too.
Now, where you go? What's your current in terms of where you are in the points? You know, you said this is a decent points day for you guys, but how confident are you guys getting yourself into that race at Le Mans for the Neo Endurance Series? Because it's sort of an interesting situation where you're not necessarily just running for the championship win or anything, but a lot of teams are trying to push hard to get themselves into that top 3 to run at Le Mans. How confident are you coming away from this 4th place finish that you can get yourself into that event?
Not very, honestly. We needed to finish ahead of SimRC and Thrustmasters today because we were 1 point behind Thrustmasters, 2 behind SimRC, and we were in 4th place, so we needed to have a good result today. Fortunately, they both finished ahead of us, just due to a little bit of driver error, but also bad luck with the meatball that we had at the end there. So, I mean, there's still definitely a chance mathematically going into Spa, but we're definitely going to need some unfortunate luck to the other 2 to be able to get in there.
We will do, and at some point we're also going to speak with Nick Thisson. We'll do that here during the interviews at some point. But for now, Kyle, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. But before you do, any shout-outs, anyone you'd like to thank today?
Thank you guys, RaceBot. You guys do a great job, obviously. And then Nick and Joe up at GoT, because it was craziness with the server issues that we had before we right before the race started, and given the circumstances, since they didn't have anything in place for that, it was kind of iffy, but they did a pretty good job from my standpoint on handling it correctly. So good job to them, and just thanks for them for putting everything on.
Well, Kyle, thanks for coming and joining us. Congrats, I suppose, on the 4th place finish, but I know you guys are in a rough spot. Actually, it's kind of funny looking at the points. The top 4 in the championship finished 1, 2, 3, 4 in order, so none of those fights, all those fights are going to stretch out. But good luck to you guys at the final round at Spa, and hope to see you guys maybe get yourself into that 24 Hours of Le Mans. It's going to be an interesting battle to watch for, to see who gets themselves into that top 3 at Spa.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we'll definitely will be. So we'll bring all of our best and everything we can at Spa. So thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys later.
We will do, as we're actually going to be joined now. I think I'm going to throw Alvin to Mr. Christoph Weitz in the SimRC DE number 177 machine. That's your 2nd place finisher in your prototype division.
Okay.
Okay, Christoph. 2nd place in what was a really bizarre race with all the things that happened. You know, we got the red flag, we got people getting penalties here and there, and you still were in a fighting chance to go for that win.
Yeah, first of all, hello to all. It was an absolutely crazy race. I think I saw never a race like this. Yeah, it was absolutely crazy, especially after the restart. We don't know where we are. And yes, we are happy to get P2 at the end.
Yeah, now, your team, SimRC.de, you find yourself in an interesting position now going into the final round of this championship, Spa-Francorchamps. The advantage now, if you want to win the championship, it's 10 points. But you also are in a position that you have a position to get one of the three tickets to go into the Neo 24-hour race. But that battle for 2nd and 3rd place, it seems like it's really, really getting tight. So now going into Spa, you have a fighting chance to get the championship, although Sim Racing for Holland, something has to happen. But you also know that if something happens to you, that ticket may also slip out of your hands as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely tight at the top. We have to finish, and then we will look where we are. Today, I think it's only Sim Racing Forland and us who didn't had a contact. Yeah, it's the main priority for the next race in Spa, and yeah, hopefully we will get the ticket for Le Mans.
Yeah, absolutely, and we look forward to seeing what SimRC.de can bring into that last round. Now, before we let you go, any shout outs that you want to give out?
Yeah, big shout out to my teammates, especially Dustin. He did a great job in the first 3 stints. Moreover, a big shout out to other sponsors, Simmertalk and Home Racer. They did a great job over the last years, and yeah, hopefully they enjoyed the race. And yeah, see you next time.
All right, thanks again for stopping by, and congratulations on your second place. So, Randy, back to you.
Back to me indeed, and I'm going to toss myself to Mr. Let's go with Jay Hafner. I believe that's the winner in your Blackadder Motorsports division. Let me just double check that because bad
Yes,
person.
he was.
So yes, we're gonna get Mr. Joel Hafner. And Joel, what a run it was for you guys in that Blackadder Motorsports car. How was it from your perspective out there today?
Well, it was a pretty good start for us. Starting off in second was pretty much as good as we wanted to be. And then with SimRC crashing out early, we were pretty much in the lead for the rest of the race. The whole red flag situation did play into our hands, we have to say, because my teammate Sven was saving fuel to make the whole hour for the pit stop so that we could avoid a splash and dash, and then the red flag situation completely erased that issue for us, and we did get pretty much a lap on almost the whole C-Spec field.
What is your let's talk about one of the interesting things about this race was that red flag situation. And I'll be honest, I think Race Control did all they could really do. A lot of people were complaining and really trying to hold the stewards to a higher standard than they certainly hold WEC, because the restart was basically held the same way that I've seen most real world restarts done. What was your opinion on the entire sequence of events, and how do you think everything? What do you think of the non-smoothness we saw in terms of the racing? Because we saw a lot of incidents occur in those opening couple laps on the restart.
Well, in any case, I think it's a difficult situation for the stewards to handle, and I don't know, I'm not going to comment on whether I know that we could have done it better or not. I think the situation was handled as we discussed it before the race, and at the restart, problems were going to happen because you have the whole field jumbled up, DPs at the back and C-Specs at the front, and that is going to be a mess anyway, so I don't think Race Control could have done much better.
Well, and this is certainly 2 in a row for you guys at Blackadder Motorsports, and going into that final round at Spa, because of the incidents that happened, you're going to have a pretty considerable points margin going into that championship round. How confident are you guys going into Spa?
Well, essentially we have to finish only 13th, which means we can come last. And the only thing we need to do is complete 70% of the lead laps, and we basically have the championship.
Well, that definitely sounds to me like you guys have that pretty much in the bag, but anything can happen in racing, so good luck to you guys, Joel, in that final round at Spa. Any shout-outs, anyone you'd like to thank before you step away?
Yep, as usual, Sven, teammate, and Tommy, our spotter. Great job as usual, and thanks to you guys, thanks to the Race Control team, and see you next time.
Well, you certainly have a good rest of your afternoon, Joel, and I'm going to throw it back to Mr. Alvin Nieves, who's going to be stood by with Mr. Simone. Well, I'll give you Simone Marceno and Movano DP.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Simone, I'm pretty sure that after the last round, you guys were on a really high note coming out with the race win, but today kind of seems a little bit different, although I'll have to say that third place is not really a bad place to finish after all.
Hello everyone. Yes, the third place was absolutely good. Even the race was a totally unlucky race, especially on the restart that was a little bit crazy. But a third place in a championship like this, I think, is gold. No?
Yeah, it is absolutely. Now, when we look at the championship standings, yes, the top 4 in the championship standings came in exactly the same position for this race. So going into Spa, we already mentioned this to SimRC.de. Perhaps going for that overall championship, may be a tough task. Seeing how Sim Racing for Holland, the form that they have shown, and the championship standings. However, second, third, and fourth, the battle for those last 2 spots to go into the Neo 24, it's very close. That any mistake by any of those 3 teams, including your team Trustmaster Mivano, it can take you out of it and can give the last ticket to another team, which in this case, Backmarker Racing is the team that is outside looking at right now.
Yes, I think that the situation at this moment is very very tough, because we hope before the race to finish in front of the guys of Sim Racing Holland, but this time they did a huge race, I think, because of, especially for the championship, for the close one, no, and our plan was to try to finish in front of them to do all in the last race. But I think now that the most probably situation is to finish the championship as good as we can in the second position, because Sim Racing Holland did a huge championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that for the next round you will put a great show, and I'm pretty sure that you will do everything possible to retain at least that third place. Now, before we let you go, any shoutouts?
I don't understand. What's the meaning of shoutouts?
Anybody
Anyone
you
you'd
want
like
to
to thank?
Yes, thank you. I want to say thank you to my sponsor, my main sponsor, Trustmaster, my team, Mivano, and my team manager, Fabio Mantellini, all people that believe in us and support us, and nothing. I have to really thank them.
All right, Simone. Thank you very much, and I'm pretty sure we will see you and next round of Spa, and you'll be a pretty good showing. So, Randy, back to you.
Yeah, back to me, and we are going to be joined by Mr. Nick Tisson, who part of race control here at your Gathering of Tweakers Endurance Series. And I actually can't move Nick because he's a bigger admin than I am, so I need someone to move Nick down. Which actually... And Nick now joins us. Nick, that was a little awkward for a second because I introed it and then I couldn't move you, and then there was that awkward silence. But thanks for joining us anyways, Nick.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's
thanks.
okay. Don't worry about it. It makes perfect sense. That way you don't have people dragging you around and yelling at you in various channels. But,
Exactly.
you know, let's talk about this from an admin point of view. And, of course, the major thing you'd want to talk about as an admin is what happened with the red flags situation. And, you know, take us through that as an admin. Was that about as smoothly as you expected it to go? Would you have preferred better? How do you think that was held from your guys' side of things?
Yeah, so I think we can talk about it for hours, but in the end, we cannot make everyone happy. And of course, we could have handled things better, but we are very limited in time and also the options that we have. So we did what we thought was best. I just wanted to comment very quickly that we still have some options to make the result a bit more fair. And we're going to have a small discussion, I hope, in the forum. So I invite all the drivers and the teams to read that and to participate. And if we can come up with a better solution, then we may do something about the result. So all I'm saying is the result at this time is not 100% fixed. It might change if we can find some good middle way, some solution that makes it a bit more fair. Or if we cannot, then we don't do anything. But let's hope we can find a good solution.
Well, that's definitely good to hear that you guys, I mean, I certainly think that given the situation, you did about all you really could do. But it's also good to hear that you're open to suggestions and possibly even alternating the way these situations are held in the future. Because, I mean, I'll be honest, we talked about it during the actual red flag period. The only other time I've actually ever heard of this happening and where there's be a restart even occur was actually during the Race Spot 24 hour where we had a server outage. Besides that, this is the only other time within 3 years I can think of this happening. So it is a very rare occurrence. And I have to say, just from the perspective of someone in the booth, I think you guys in the race control booth did a very good job with this. So well done to all you guys up there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, as you said, we didn't really prepare a lot for this because the chance is so small. But yeah, maybe we should have. And for the future, we definitely will. We discussed a little bit in the driver briefing what we would do, but then of course when it actually happens, there's a lot of things you didn't think about, like potential black flags being thrown by the sim because the positions aren't in order anymore, things like that. So we were very cautious to do anything that might influence the results even more. And I hope we did the best we could.
Well, well done again, like you said, to you guys. But before we let you go, really, you won't have any teammates to shout out to, but are you running in the Neo race tomorrow, or do you do race control over there as well?
I am technically in a team, but I don't think I've driven a lap yet, so I'm kind of a backup driver. But yeah, good luck to my team.
Yeah, so good luck to Nick's team tomorrow in the Neo race, but we're going to let you go, Nick, and we're going to get this show wrapped up. Good luck discussing all the happenings of this race. I'm sure you guys are going to have a busy couple weeks before you get to the final race at Spa.
Yep, thanks.
So that pretty much wraps it up, Alvin, and I mean, what a race it was. It really kind of is sort of, it was one of the first league races in a while that really had this much in terms of drama, and it really had everything on offer. You had a very clean start. Then you had that weird red flag period. You had bits of strategy in the middle. I mean, this was a hectic race.
Yeah, and this is pretty much what you will expect from an endurance racing like this. Not that we like, when things like this happen, like the server issues, but that is something that you always have to be ready and you have to be prepared in case things like those happen. So overall, the race was fantastic, and I'm pretty sure the final round in Spa will be nothing short of amazing compared to this round.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. That final race is going to be it's going to be really exciting because while some of the championships might be more or less decided, for example, within the GTC division, that's pretty much wrapped up. Blackadder kind of has that championship in the bag so long as they hit the 70%, as they said, but a lot of people really trying to fight for that top 3 to get themselves into that Neo Endurance 24 hours of Le Mans, which is what really a lot of people want to be a part of. But that said, that's going to do it for us here today on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live from your gathering of tweakers, 3 hours of the Nurburgring. It's been Randy Chineth as well as Alvin Nieves, Hugo Louis working the cameras the entirety of the way through. And be sure to tune in to here tomorrow for your 6 hours of the Nurburgring at 1500 or 3 p.m. GMT time for when that 6-hour race really kicks off. See you all tomorrow, and from all of us, thanks for watching in. Bye-bye.